Yeah.
I call to order the regular meeting of the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge for August 12, 2019. We have the distinct pleasure of recognizing two of our young residents in Burr Ridge. I want to introduce the audience to John and Sam Pitsulaskis. They are two kids who went out on their time and set up a lemonade stand to raise over $250 to donate towards fighting against stereogenics. When I read that, I went down to their home. I think they were out visiting Cape Canaveral or somewhere because I stopped twice and couldn't catch it. But I thought it would be great if they came tonight and led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. John is 8 years old. He's going to really lead us tonight. And he's going into third grade at the Gower West School. His favorite subject is math. His favorite sport is baseball that he plays through our park district. His 5-year-old brother Sam, the one with the golden hair, is going into kindergarten, also in Gower West, and his favorite subject is to be determined. His favorite sport is soccer, which he also plays in our park district. The family, one of our great Burr Ridge families, just visited Cape Canaveral in Florida this summer. The highlight was going to for shark fishing, and each of the boys caught a shark, for which mom and dad have pictures to prove it. So, John and Sam, come on up and lead us. Where's your assistant? Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Wonderful. Clerk, roll call, please.
Trustee Francis.
Here.
Trustee Schiappa.
Here.
Trustee Pavesa.
Here.
Trustee Snyder.
Here.
Trustee Mattal. Here. Trustee Model. Mayor Grasso.
Here. We have a quorum. We have two presentations tonight. The first one is the Cook County Forest Preserve Strategic Plan presentation.
My name is Lydia Euler. I work for the Forest Preserves of Cook County. Thank you very much for having me here. I know you're not all here for me, but I'll try to be quick. I know you have a lot of important business to get to. Today I just want to tell you a little bit about the various ways Cook County residents benefit from the Forest Preserves and all of the resources that Forest Preserves provide to the community.
Is your microphone on? Should be a green light.
Yes, it is.
All right.
Sorry, I always talk louder. We only recently celebrated our centennial anniversary, and we use this milestone to develop our next century conservation plan, which provides a renewed vision and roadmap for our next 100 years. We're currently implementing this plan and making sure that the people are aware of the forest preserves and are supporting our mission to care for these important public lands. Next slide. The environmental visionaries who created the forest preserves over 100 years ago were guided by the mission to acquire, restore, and protect our natural lands for the people, plants, and animals of Cook County now and in the future. Next slide, please. Today, the Forest Preserves of Cook County is one of the oldest and largest conservation districts in the United States. We have over 70,000 acres, and that makes up about 11% of the Cook County footprint. The preserves are divided into 5 zones. You can see on the map here, there's the northwest, north, central, south, and southwest. The Cook County portion of Burr Ridge is located in the southwest zone. Next slide, please. Out of 102 counties in Illinois, Cook County is actually the most ecologically diverse. Within the 70,000 acres is a wide range of ecosystem, including oak woodlands, savannas, wetlands, and tallgrass prairies, which you can see the variety of ecosystems on this slide. These diverse ecosystems are homes to a variety of birds, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and insects. Next slide, please. Cook County is also home to more endangered species than nearly any other place in Illinois. 90% of the threatened and endangered species found in Cook County actually live in the forest preserves. And we share Cook County with 113 threatened and endangered species, which is almost a quarter of the state of Illinois' species, endangered species. Next slide, please. In addition to providing homes for plants and animals, these ecosystems also provide services important to the health of our environment in our region. The forest preserves comprise the largest clean air resource in the region, as well as the greatest rainwater retainer. So it really helps with a lot of flooding issues that happen. Spending time in nature, like the forest preserve, is also really important for our health. It reduces stress, illness, and improves our overall well-being. There is an estimated 469 million annual benefit to Cook County from the forest preserves. Next slide, please. The forest preserves is responsible for preserving biodiversity and protecting our precious natural heritage. Many people think that nature can take care of itself, but nature in urban areas really needs our help to remain healthy. We're working diligently with staff, volunteers, and partners to remove invasive species and improve the ecological health of our region. Our goal is to restore over 30,000 acres to health. Next slide, please. You can see these before and after pictures of Dultron Prairie, which is located in the south side of the Cook County area. The before picture shows a site that's choked with invasive species like buckthorn and honeysuckle, and the after photo shows what restoration looks like. You can see that it's a recovering prairie ecosystem where plants and animals can thrive and people can enjoy. Next slide, please. Volunteers play a really key role in preserving these natural areas, and we can always use more help. One of the most popular ways to volunteer is through restoration activities, like removing invasive plants, collecting native seeds to replant, and then monitoring rare plants, animals, and insects. You can also volunteer for educational programs and events, as well as our Trail Watch program for people who are interested in helping to keep the preserves and the trails safe. You can check out our website for additional volunteer opportunities. Next slide, please. In addition to volunteering, we have lots of opportunities for all different ages and all kinds of outdoor recreation experiences. We know that you're going to find something you like in the forest preserves. We have over 40 managed lakes and ponds, and that includes over 2,000 acres of fishing waters. We have paddling classes. You can rent boats, canoes, and kayaks. There's over 300 picnic rows for you to have a picnic. We have 10 different golf courses, 3 aquatic centers, 3 off-leash dog areas, and we have this one adventure zipline course in Venus Woods in in Western Springs, and we have a lot more. Next slide, please. We also have 5 campgrounds. They're located throughout the county, and you can see on the map here, you have 2 really close to you. I'll explain those later. Next slide, please. We also have 6 nature centers that introduce visitors to the beauty and complexity of our natural areas. They're Crabtree, Sand Ridge, River Trail, Sagawau, Trailside, and Little Red Schoolhouse. Each of these centers offers different displays that kind of focus on the plants and animals and communities of our region, and they have a lot of free programming for you guys to take advantage of. Next slide, please. We offer field trip programming at nature centers for teachers and their students that are interested in bringing their kids out to learn about the ecology of Cook County. We also have a lot of other outreach initiatives targeting both urban and suburban communities, and we want to include people who live nearby forest preserves and people who don't live nearby forest preserves. We want to make sure we're reaching everybody in Cook County so they know about everything that the forest preserves has to offer. Next slide, please. In addition to the programs that are held at nature centers, we also have a lot of different programming and events, over 100 throughout the year, and most of them are free. Whether it's learning to cook over a campfire, doing yoga in the woods, going on a relaxing bird walk, learning to paddle on one of our lakes, there's really something for everybody. And if you visit our website, can you click the next slide? You'll be able to find something that you'll enjoy. A lot of people don't know that the Chicago Botanic Garden and the Brookfield Zoo are part of the Forest Preserve system. They're actually located on Forest Preserve land. Next slide, please. So in addition to all the resources I mentioned, I wanted to highlight a few that are near Burr Ridge. So we have the Erie Crown Forest, we have Theodore Stone Prairie, we have Palos and Sac Valley Preserves, which have a lot of trails, hundreds of miles of trails for you guys to bike, hike, horseback ride on, whatever you want. There are also a lot of regional paved trails where you can do long distance biking on, including the I&M Canal, the Centennial Trail, the Calsag Trail, which is 26 miles long and runs from Lamont, Illinois, all the way to the Indiana border. You have Little Red Schoolhouse, Saginaw Environmental Learning Center for your nature centers. You can go paddling on the Des Plaines River, accessing through the Columbia Woods Preserve. You can also go paddling on Maple Lake and Tampier Lake and Saginaski Slough, and you can rent kayaks and canoes at those lakes as well. You can fish at those lakes, and you can also fish at Sundown Meadow, Bullfrog Lake, and Sag Quarries. You have 2 nearby campgrounds. There's Camp Bullfrog Lake, which is in Willow Springs, and Camp Sullivan, which is in Oak Forest. And you aren't too far away from the very popular Swallow Cliff Woods and Stairs and Pavilion, which I'm sure many of you know about. And I just want to let you know that I have a bunch of maps and brochures. We have a quarterly event brochure that's out there on one of the tables out there, and maps of the nearby forest preserve areas. Can you go to the next slide? So at the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that about the Next Century Conservation Plan and how we're trying to make people aware of the forest preserves and feel welcome to visit them. And that's where we really need the help of the board and the people here. We want you to visit your local forest preserves, attend a free event, volunteer, let your friends, family, and community know about all the forest preserves have to offer. If we work really hard to spread the word about the forest preserves and this amazing natural resources, we hopefully can maintain, improve, and expand the forest preserves for the future. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. You gave us a lot of information in a very short period of time, and no, thank you very much for presenting this.
Thank you very much for having me.
Our next presentation is about the DuPage Metropolitan Emergency Response Team. Chief Madden, who played a very significant role, please inform us.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to give you information in a shorter period of time.
Okay.
I'm very proud to appear before you tonight. There was a press conference last week, and you all received the document from State Attorney Berlin in the press release. I wanted to highlight some things that weren't discussed in that press release that are pretty important to the residents in Burr Ridge. Back in 2016, the impetus for all this started actually about 3 years ago. The Illinois legislators created a strict law in reference to the investigation of officer-involved shootings, officer-involved deaths, and sexual assault cases involving police officers. So there was a very strict criteria as far as the investigation, who handles those investigations, and how they're done in a time frame. Since that period of time, up until last year, we relied on the state police, and so did many municipalities in DuPage County. The Illinois State Police to handle and investigate any officer-involved shooting. They come in, they're a third party, unbiased, and of course have jurisdiction. The problem with that, and the problem that came up is they're very busy. And there was usually about an 8 to 10 month turnaround on a report. And as you know, with a very serious incident like that, waiting 8 to 10 months to get a conclusion can be a problem. So we were approached, the DuPage County Chiefs of Police Association, we were approached by the leadership of the Felony Investigative Assistance Team last year, which is one of 2 task forces up until a couple weeks ago in DuPage County, to create a public integrity task force to handle these types of incidents so they could be done quicker and more efficiently. The executive board, which I'm the current president of DuPage Chiefs, the executive board, we discussed it and decided it was really not the DuPage County Chiefs of Police that should have jurisdiction, but we started looking at the task force entities that were currently in DuPage County. DuPage County Major Crimes and Felony Investigative Assistance Team, which we've been members since the early 90s. Those were the 2 entities. Why have a third task force? It just didn't make sense. So it was time to start merging the task force entities. And we had a new sheriff, of course. There was an election in December, so we worked on the structure, the organization of the task force, and waited for ultimately Sheriff Mendrick to take office. And we hit the ground running in December to create one task force throughout DuPage County. So the Shared Services Committee of the DuPage Chiefs, which I chaired, was created. We set a very aggressive timeline to have everything done, a new task force created by July 1st, 2019. So we knew what our mission was. We worked with State's Attorney Berlin and Sheriff Mendrick, and ultimately, if you could advance it, one more. So ultimately, what we created was a countywide task force, one countywide task force with over 300 police officers as part of the task force. It's bigger, it's better, and what we have is you've got, I highlighted in yellow, this wasn't really discussed at the press conference. State's Attorney Berlin listed all of the components. The components in white, SWAT, major crimes, major crash, digital forensics, planned events, and canine are something we've had for about 10 years with Fiat. DuPage major crimes had one. They investigated major crimes and that was it. So when we merged these task forces together and included the sheriff with his specialty units, we come up with what you see on the slide. And in yellow are the new additions. So we have crisis negotiators now as a separate component. We have our own public integrity unit to handle what I discussed earlier, the officer-involved shootings. We have our own crime scene investigators, CSI unit. Before we relied on the sheriff to come out and assist. Now the sheriff is part of our task force, and we've got probably about 20 crime scene investigators. The incident management assistance team we brought in from the DuPage County Chiefs. We created that, but that's part of the new task force. And lastly, surveillance and intelligence. We're very proud of this. I don't know of any other task force in the United States this big that has this many components. And the reason I say that is back in 2016 when I attended the FBI Academy in Quantico, I was there with colleagues from all over the United States in 24 countries. They were more interested in Fiat at the time, which is smaller, nowhere near the size of this. And I had calls when I got home to provide them information on that model. So we're very proud of it. I think DuPage County, in my opinion, is a leader throughout the country with this, and it really raises level of services for the residents in Burr Ridge and in DuPage County to a higher level. So I think it's if you think about it, we had 7 months to get 33 municipalities on board with one intergovernmental agreement. So it's over 30 municipalities and 30 different attorneys to agree on an agreement, and you know it all worked out, and that with a lot of help from the DuPage County mayors and managers too. So I just wanted to present that to you. Thank you for the opportunity, and we're still going. Probably going to get a little bigger.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public safety is our number one. Okay, that takes us to 4, which is the consent agenda. We're removing at the request of trustee Francis items 7B as in boy, 7D as in dog. All items listed with an asterisk are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed by the board, open for public comment, and voted upon during this meeting. 5 minutes A, approval of regular board meeting of July 22, 2019. B, receive and file draft environmental quality commission minutes of July 29, 2019. C, receive and file draft of plan commission minutes of August 5, 2019. And D, receive and file draft of economic development committee meeting minutes of August 7, 2019. Under 6 ordinances, A, approval of an ordinance denying an application for special use pursuant to section 4.5 of the Burr Ridge zoning ordinance regarding wireless service facility at a proposed owned and used for municipal services, Z04 2019, 10 South 110 Madison Street, Tri-State Fire Protection District. B, approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 8 stormwater runoff of the Burr Ridge Municipal Code, adopt Cook County Watershed Management Ordinance by reference as amended on May 16, 2019, and adopt the County of DuPage countywide stormwater and floodplain ordinance by reference as amended on May 14, 2019. Under resolutions, 7C, adoption of a resolution approving the destruction of the verbatim recordings of certain closed session meetings of the Village of Burr Ridge. Under 8, considerations, H, approval of recommendation to approve request for variations to the fence ordinance to permit a 6-foot high fence in the side and front yard V06 2019 at 8335 County Line Road, Pizzuto. I, approval of recommendation to amend PUD to expand the parking lot Z08 2019 120 Harvester Drive, Oakland. J, approval of recommendation to approve the zoning ordinance amendment regarding the definition of commercial vehicles under Z10 2019. K, approval of recommendation to purchase Wayside automated train horn stop parts for Quiet Zone Technologies Quiet Zone Technologies of Fort Worth, Texas, in the amount not to exceed $10,200. L, approval of recommendation to purchase 4 replacement AEDs from Cardio Partner Resources of Brentwood, Tennessee, in the amount of $5,445. M, approval of recommendation to award contract for floor mats in village buildings and uniform cleaning services for the Public Works Department to Breen's Inc. of Countryside, Illinois, at prices established in the service agreement. And approval of recommendation to ratify emergency water main repair at Plainfield Road and Madison Street on July 26, 2019 by Vian Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $8,676. And O, approval of vendor list dated August 12, 2019 in the amount of $280,341.35 for all funds plus $194,889.65 for payroll for a grand total of $475,231, of which includes special expenditures of $12,025 to BKD LP for auditing services, $16,020 to SF Mobile Vision for 3 in-squad cameras, and 2019 road program expenditures of $64,974 to J. Denler Inc. for crack sealing, $51,901.35 to Orange Crush for paving, and finally $23,466.25 to Superior Road striping for final striping. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the following items on the consent agenda? 5A, B, C, and D, 6A, 7C, and 6B, and 7C, and under considerations 8, H, I, J, K, L, M, and O.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Skiappa?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Pavesa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0.
5-0, the motion passes. That takes us to 7A. Under resolutions, consideration of a resolution approving the study of a potential intergovernmental agreement between municipalities of Burr Ridge, Willowbrook, Hinsdale, and Darien Ray Sterigenics properties. All of you have seen the resolution in the packet under 7A. I could read it. I'm already winded from the consent agenda, but if anybody wants it read aloud, I'll be glad to do that. 1 second. Can I get a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion at the board level? Yes, Mr. Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to address you before taking action on this. It's been almost a year since the threat of sterigenics and ethylene oxide has been discovered in our community. And I rise in support of this intergovernmental agreement, along with the villages of Willowbrook, Hinsdale, and Darien, and I congratulate you for thinking what I consider outside of the box. Springfield and Washington have proven to be failing us, and it's leadership that you're bringing to the table, that Guy Franzese through the Environmental Quality Commission, and the rest of the trustees that I think will ultimately make my community safe again. And I'm grateful that you're doing these things. This chemical, ethylene oxide, does not belong in our neighborhood. The entire supply chain, from transportation of the chemical through our community, represents a risk from spillage, from explosion, from airborne cancer-causing chemicals. So it's unconscionable that it's been allowed to exist all these years. And anything that you and the trustees and the other villages can do, I'll be grateful to see that rid from the community forever. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this resolution? Okay, let me give you a little background to it, since we have a nice crowd here tonight. As those of you that observed the last meeting we had, all 5 of these trustees, all 5 of your elected trustees here spoke strongly and in one voice against Sterigenics remaining open. It has certainly been the public position that I have taken, and it's the staff position too on this. So not only do we have unanimity on this issue with these 5 trustees and me and staff, but we have also been meeting through the mayors with Hinsdale, Willowbrook, Darien, Western Springs has come, Countryside has come, about other ways to deal with Sterigenics. Understanding now that borders of municipalities do not matter on this issue. And so we talked to our lawyers and we came up with the idea of possibly condemning the Sterigenics buildings and taking them over for a public purpose, which you can imagine right away would include, is there a proper public purpose for Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, Darien, since these buildings are in Willowbrook? We think there's some real good public arguments to make to you when and if the time comes about spending some of our money to make this happen and to improve that site for the public, not only in Willowbrook, but in Burr Ridge and Hinsdale and the other communities. So let me read this, and now that I thought about it, because you'll see where it's going. Whereas the Village of Burr Ridge, Cook and DuPage counties, in the state of Illinois is a duly constituted public agency of the state of Illinois, and whereas the Village of Burr Ridge, as a public agency of the state of Illinois, is authorized and empowered by the Constitution of the state of Illinois and the Illinois Intergovernmental Cooperation Act to enter into intergovernmental agreements with other public agencies on matters of mutual concern and interest. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and the Board of Trustees of the Village of Burr Ridge, Cook and DuPage counties, Illinois, as follows. Section 1, the Mayor and Village Administrator are hereby authorized to meet and confer with representatives of Willowbrook, Darien, and Hinsdale in order to explore the feasibility of entering into an intergovernmental agreement providing for the possible acquisition of the Sterigenics properties in Willowbrook. Section 2, the Board of Trustees determines that any such intergovernmental agreement should consider the following elements. A, determining appropriate public purposes for the use of such property upon acquisition. B, determining whether the public use of the subject property should be active or passive. C, establishing rules for the joint use of any such facility by the residents of the participating municipalities. D, determining financing options and cost allocations among the participating municipality. E, involving our elected representatives in this process. And F, determining the need for legislative assistance to achieve the goals of the intergovernmental agreement, including but not limited to seeking quick take authority from the Illinois General Assembly. Section 3, the Mayor and Administrator shall from time to time advise the Board of Trustees as to the status of such efforts. Any report shall be publicly made at a Board of Trustees meeting. Section 4, that is resolution, that this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption and approval as required by law. We have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Trustee Paveza?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Matal?
Yes.
5-0.
5-0, adopted this 12th day of August 2019 by a roll call vote. Thank you very much. Anybody else like to speak?
Mayor, somebody's got a white Lexus with their door open and their lights on and swing in the parking lot.
Okay, I'm sorry, a white car?
A white Lexus, the door's open, the lights are on. Anybody? Very strange.
Okay. Thank you. It's a full-service meeting, by the way. You know, we want everybody to get home tonight. All right, so, yes, Al.
You know, it's a shame that we have to go to this type of resolution to protect the people in the area. You know, it's also a shame that we can't count on our public officials and our courts to do the job. I just am afraid that if we allowed it to the courts and the political part, it'd just delay and be in business in no time at all. So without a doubt, there's no doubt in my mind that this is the way to go.
Great. Anyone else? Yes, Tony.
You know, I'm also upset at our state legislature and our court system, but what I am proud of is the Burr Ridge residents that have stood up against stereogenics. Someone like Richard Morton has been instrumental in providing us information and has been persistent and consistent in getting us what we need to create these arguments and thinking out of the box. I also want to thank Mayor Gary Grasso for taking the lead from day one of being elected into this office. And it gives me great hope that we will succeed and prevail.
Anyone else? I was going to save this also, before we get on to the next item, I was going to save this for reports and communication, but it does dovetail here. And since some of you may leave before we get there, I just want you to know this too. At the request of the Environmental Quality Commission, which is chaired by Trustee Francis, staff has reviewed the list of current businesses operating in Burr Ridge. None have been found to use, emit, or store any chemicals or materials that are known to be cancer-causing or otherwise dangerous to human health. Furthermore, the Economic Development Committee is currently reviewing options for establishing a business licensing program which would preclude any business that would have a negative impact on public health from operating or opening in Burr Ridge. So our Environmental Quality Commission, this board, and the Economic Development Committee are all making sure there are no other stereogenics in Burr Ridge now, and will make sure they never come here. So we are trying to close that loop for everybody also. Thank you. All right, that takes us to considerations, and the first consideration, as it's always been on our agenda.
That's 7B.
Oh, see, I'm ahead of myself again. Oh, right, we took them off the consent agenda. Thank you. 7B, at the request of Trustee Francis, is adoption of a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Burr Ridge and PACE, the suburban bus division of the Regional Transportation Authority. What was the issue here?
Yes, thank you. I just had a couple of questions for the chief. Chief, I was wondering what ordinances, what could be enforced in that, what would be enforced in that parking lot?
Well, we would have to work with PACE. The IGA gives us the authority to enforce village ordinances, traffic flow, and parking, and so on. Same as at County Line Square.
Okay, so because of the overcrowding situation at the PACE lot and PACE's reluctance to expand the lot like they had promised us to, many of the patrons park not within inside the yellow stripe lines.
Correct.
They park along the curbs, and they dangerously park along the entryway curve on both sides, which would make it difficult for a fire truck to get in there, or an ambulance.
Without a doubt, I went through there today, there's no way a fire truck or an ambulance can get through.
Okay, so there would be then similar striping in a fire lane, that types of things, but I really don't want to punish these patrons for the lack of pace to take the proactive leave and expand the facilities. So I was curious what would be enforced. Those items would be enforced then.
Well, once they post the proper signage, if
Yep.
they choose to do so, then we can take enforcement action.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, with that,
I'd like to make a motion to approve 7B intergovernmental agreement between Village of Burr Ridge and PACE.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Takes us to 7D, adoption of a resolution regarding the periodic review of closed meeting minutes of the Village of Burr Ridge. I think this needed some explanation. I think that Trustee Francis brought that to our attention. So what should be the proper verbiage here?
Staff prepared a new title, the adoption of a resolution regarding the periodic review and release of closed meeting minutes of the Village of Burr Ridge. The statute, Open Meetings Act, requires a semi-annual review. It doesn't obligate you to release any of the minutes, but since you're doing so, the suggestion was to change the title to properly reflect that. It was done so.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. The title didn't agree with what we were doing, and I know we have to review these every 6 months, and I want to make sure that everything was in agreement, that's all.
Right, so can I get a motion to amend item 7D to read adoption of a resolution regarding the periodic review and release of closed meeting minutes of the Village of Burr Ridge?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, can I get a motion to approve the adoption of a resolution regarding periodic review and release of closed meeting minutes of the Village of Burr Ridge?
So moved.
Roll call?
They adopted a motion by voice vote to amend the title as it appears on the agenda. And that was the main question.
So we need a roll call. And who made the motion? Al, and seconded by Anita.
Thank you very much. Trustee Bavazza?
Yes.
Trustee Motal?
Yes.
Trustee Snyder?
Yes.
Trustee Scalpa?
Yes.
Trustee Francis?
Yes.
5-0.
5-0, the motion passes. 8, consideration, update regarding Sterigenics in Willowbrook, Illinois.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is one of our ongoing agenda items that is meant to inform the public and board about what is going on with the village's current engagement with the Sterigenics issue. The most recent update centers around the lawsuit between the Attorney General and State's Attorney against Sterigenics. This was heard in DuPage Circuit Court on July 24th. I attended along with Mayor Grasso. Trustee Francis was also present, as well as a number of the residents that I see here tonight. At that time, the court considered a consent order, also known as a settlement agreement. So if you hear that word, they're used interchangeably, prepared by those three parties, as well as the motions from Willowbrook, Burr Ridge, Hinsdale, and Burr Ridge to act as intervening parties in the suit. The court approved the motions for the four villages to intervene and honored our request to have input and comment on consent on said consent order. At this time, the court has continued the motion to September 6th, Friday, September 6th at 10 a.m. That's a Friday at Circuit Court. So if you're able to come that day, I invite you to do so. We were moved to the big court at that time, just in reflection of the public notice that has been put out on this issue. Another item, Thursday, August 1st, the IEPA held a public meeting in Ashton Place over in Willowbrook regarding the permit application filed by Sterigenics to open one of their two buildings in Willowbrook. This is a construction permit, and on Sterigenics' part is intended is the key word, to comply with the Matt Holler Act, Senate Bill 1852, recently put into law by the state of Illinois. The agency did take questions from the public, and they will be providing written responses when they decide to make a ruling on said permit's validity. And they may approve it with comments, and they may deny it. So we will know that in the next 60 days. We submitted a number of public comments on this item. A number was taken on our website. So I thank all of the residents and business owners who did comment on that. There were quite a number that we did end up receiving. it was a very interesting meeting, I would say, to say the least, for those of us who attended. One last note, you did get a staff report from the city of Waukegan. Just one of the items, Waukegan also has a plant that uses ethylene oxide called Medline. Medline went before their Planning and Zoning Commission for a variance for their stack height. One of the important items to this whole process is the height of stacks to either further distribute, further disseminate emissions of ETO as they become available throughout the area, for lack of a better word. Waukegan's Planning and Zoning Commission denied that request. So that was a denial. They did not demonstrate on their terms that they demonstrated a hardship. So they will have to have a shorter stack, which will impact how much they can actually emit, or how they will emit it, I should say. So that is just interesting reading. It does not necessarily affect the Sterigenics plant, but it is interesting to see another body kind of rule in front of Willowbrook on what will inevitably be an issue for them. There's just a few other items that I put in front of you, as I always do. There is also a resolution from D86 in support of this matter on the people's part. You are the people, the residents of this area, as well as a resolution that Oak Brook has on their agenda tomorrow evening in support of the people. Again, you are the people. They are supporting the Attorney General in their lawsuit against Sterigenics. So those are out. D86 was approved last week. And Oak Brooks will be considered tomorrow evening for approval. Otherwise, we'll be continuing to update you as we are able, and we will be working on any issues that come up as they do. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any comments? Yes, Steve Francis.
I want to thank the many residents that came out for the Illinois EPA public hearing on the application by Sterigenics for construction permit. Residents from Burr Ridge, Willowbrook, Darien, Hinsdale, Western Springs, and many of the other surrounding communities. These residents that did speak were well informed, well educated, asked pointed questions. I was impressed and amazed with their intelligence and how they handled themselves. And also Mayor Grasso, who spoke early on, and he had an exceptional speech defending our position as residents, who demanding our environment and atmosphere be clear of this cancer-causing agent. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, that's the update. Thank you. 8B, consideration of agreement to share costs with the Village of Willowbrook for third-party review of Sterigenics EPA permit application.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just soft language which updates you as to an item that staff is undertaking. As part of that meeting, the Village of Willowbrook has offered to engage our testing consultant who we've used in the past, GHD, to perform a professional technical review on the permit itself. The goal here is to see in what ways this permit can be either improved or otherwise thrown out for its invalidity. The total cost of the permit review will be $12,000, split 4 ways. Burr Ridge's portion will not exceed $3,000. Again, this total cost is below the village administrator's spending authority. This item merely is listed to provide information regarding an additional step that we're taking to try and make every avenue reached on this matter.
Yes?
Question, so this review will be completed before the August 15th timeline, so comments can be submitted to LNAPA?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone in the audience on this? Okay, it's within his authority, but do we need a motion?
No, sir.
Right, okay. So that takes us to 8D, consideration, C, consideration of request for an amendment to the SIA annexation agreement.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request from SIA to erect an electric fence around most of the perimeter of their parking lot facilities. SIA has engaged a private contractor, Electric Guard Dog, EGD, to act as their agent in this request. The reason why this is here is because this is a property that is governed by an annexation agreement. Plan Commission normally would hear this if it were not under an annexation agreement, but since it is, this has come right to the board level for your immediate consideration. Whichever way you decide, if you decide that you desire to have this put in, this would require an amendment to an annexation agreement. So we'd have to hold a public hearing at the board level. That would be done at a future meeting. But really, the purpose of the intent of the amendment to the annexation agreement is to install an electric fence in the yellow area as shown on your screen. Blow it up a little bit more. So what we're looking at here is an aerial of the SIA truck lot. As you can see, there are many semi-trucks parked along the perimeter of the facility. We've all seen this lot from the highway. This is 55 right here. We're located somewhere down on the southeast side. EGD is a company that has come before the village before. They had worked with us on a previous petition. That petition fell through on its own merits. But the real purpose again here is for have the board direct staff as to how you'd like to proceed with this item. Again, if you'd like to move forward with an annexation agreement or an amendment to an annexation agreement to allow this to go in, we would need to have a hearing scheduled to do so. If you do not want to permit it, there's no further action required because there would be no amendment required. I'd like to introduce EGD and Representative Messiah. They'd like to take you more through their petition. There's also supporting documents within the packet itself talking about more of the technical aspects that you can read on. We'll be here to answer any questions of this matter, and I'd like to turn it over to the petitioner at this time.
Thank you, Evan. My name is Michael Pate. I'm with the Electric Guard Dog in Columbia, South Carolina. We basically are the manufacturer, installer, and monitor the system for everyone we install it for. We've got about 5,000 of these across the country. Basically what we have, I'm going to explain it really quickly to you, is a 12-volt battery. So we operate the entire system on a 12-volt battery and a solar array. We are never connected to the 120 at all. So we take that 12 volts, amplify it to 7,000 volts over 1.3 seconds. Once that amplification is complete, we release that energy down the interior fence line back to an alarm panel, looking for a nice clean return. And in our world, a clean return is 2,000 volts or more. So it's under 2,000 volts, my alarm panel starts counting. I'm looking for 5 continuous pulses that do not come back clean. That's about 7 seconds. If I get 5 continuous pulses that don't come back clean, I set the alarm off. Audibly on the site and silently back in Columbia, South Carolina to the call center. I'm gonna call Jaime at 2 o'clock in the morning. Jaime, you got a break? Oh, you moved my picture.
Sorry.
Jaime, you got a break on the northeast corner, 220 feet in the northeast corner. We can measure break to about 10 feet, tell him where the break is. He can bring the cameras up, observe that live, or do it in person. We want a verified alarm. If we get a verified alarm, we find someone over there that's cut a hole in the fence, has unlocked the trailers, is robbing Jaime blind, we're going to call the local police department. If not, we'll button it all back up and go back to bed. So that's basically what we do. It's always inside the existing fence line, so you already have a permanent fence up. We install behind that, so someone cannot hit it accidentally. They actually have to be going through the perimeter fence to touch it. It's very similar to a livestock or cattle fence, if anyone's familiar with those. Except we're maybe about 1/4 or 1/5 the power, or about 1/8 the power of a taser. So we're basically, what we're trying to do is deter criminal activity from these type of installations. Yes, ma'am.
If someone does touch it, whether intentionally or not intentionally, what happens to that person?
You receive a shot, for sure. It's memorable, and you probably won't do it again. But it is not a lethal device. We actually operate under the auspices of the IEC, the International Electrotechnical Commission, 60335-2-76. We actually test the energizers and the arrays and all the panels to the standards that exist. So it basically tells you the separation from the perimeter fence to the electric fence, the height, the warning signs, the capacity of the energizer cannot exceed 5 joules, and we actually have to put a sticker on there that we're actually authorized to do that by a NERLA, nationally recognized testing laboratory in our manufacturing facility. So it's a tested product. Yes, ma'am.
And a stray animal would react similarly?
It's not going to hurt a stray animal either. Think about a bird on a wire. You ever see a bird get hurt?
Like a dog,
No.
maybe a dog?
Dog. These devices have been used for many, many, many years to contain livestock. And people aren't interested in injuring their livestock. They just don't want them going past a certain point. So it's basically that technology with an alarm system attached. Anybody else have a question?
This is Burr Ridge. Are you having a crime issue?
I will let Jaime answer that since he's the security director for site.
We have found break-ins at the facility. We attribute to not being hit by our security process that we put in play. And that would be, let's just say, we get somebody to come in and give out some information, that's a done deal. They're going to get away with whatever they have the information for. So 97%, 85% of our thefts are going to be internal, 15 are going to be external. However, it's the external that has the big number on it. If you were to put $1 million on it, you'd put, I'm gonna say 900,000 on the external, 10,000, maybe 100,000 on the internal. Because on the internal, they're only taking little things. On the external, they're coming in to get the big trucks, they're coming in to get our commodities, the high-value freight, the pharmaceuticals, and this freight is kept there. It's coming in and out 100% of the time. Our facilities are closed down for operations over the weekends. However, our freight continues to come in and out and get staged within the yard.
So you're telling me you want to be proactive, that you really haven't had any external break-ins?
Well, he's had break-ins, but no one's got anything yet because they've been disturbed before they can do it. So to prevent that from happening, we'd like to go ahead and install. Correct.
Our company is actually growing quite a bit. And we actually, we're growing attention as well, as far as SIA goes. SIA is turning into one of the largest LTL companies in the world, actually, in the nation. And we are putting these everywhere, especially the location here is our biggest issue, would be right by the highway where all these trailers are being seen. Thieves come by, they look at them, they get ideas. Hey, we got that. Now, the simple look at that fence, they're gonna look over, they know what that fence is all about.
So it's going to be signage, you know,
Yes.
It's an electric fence.
Yes, and the standard demands the signage. The signage is about the size of a legal pad, caution electric shock, in English and Spanish. I have it in several other languages across America. I actually print the signs in 35 different languages, just depending on the municipality I'm in and what the local population is. So, but basically English and Spanish.
As a company, sorry, sir. Yeah. As a company, we also make sure that these fences are kept, that we do PM checks on them regularly, that they don't go, they don't turn into something that you just don't want to look at.
So you're telling us, this board, that if some person, following up on Anita's questions, some person inadvertently touches it from the outside, walking for whatever reason, or a pet or an animal touches it from the outside, they will not be seriously injured.
They won't be injured at all. The shock is like this. Think about yourself and your stocky feet shuffling across the floor on the carpet. When you get to the doorknob and reach out and hit it, you actually generate a spark at times. That's somewhere around 10,000 volts. I'm less than that. But you don't want to do it again. I mean, you know, it's just very uncomfortable, and your body abhors an electrical shock.
Okay, any board members have any questions? Jessica?
So according to your design information, you require, this electric fence is installed on installed inside of an existing or a new fence, correct?
Correct.
So what will happen to the existing fence, the barbed wire fence? Will that remain in place, or will another fence be installed?
It will remain.
Yeah, it will remain.
It will remain. How would an electric fence prevent a tractor trailer from being driven out the gate?
Nothing.
Not going to do that.
It will set the alarm off.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to get a pulse anymore.
Okay. So your break-ins that you've been able to stop, have those have occurred because someone's scaling the existing barbed wire fence or cutting a hole in it?
Cutting a hole through it, forcing the way through, bringing the fence up, coming underneath, scaling it, everything.
That's what's happening. They're scaling the fence.
Correct.
And how would they, if they're scaling the fence, how would they remove freight? Do they scale the fence with the freight on the back?
Once you're in, thieves, let's just say, I can bring up any one of my cities that have been broken into. Let's just say here, you break in on the south side. You don't want to come out the south side, you're actually going out the north side.
Okay.
Just literally cut a hole, just go through it.
Well, the north side has that 20-foot tall sound barrier wall that you were required to
Well, I
install.
was just.
Okay, well, that's there, and behind that is another barbed wire fence. I mean, they're gonna scale all that. This is gonna prevent all that.
I've seen them scale it, yes.
Okay, your neighbor to the west, they have an electric fence, correct?
Correct.
And so you're gonna put electric fence up against their electric fence?
It'll be separated by two fences.
You don't-
Each property will have a perimeter fence, and there'll be an
Okay,
electric fence.
because you have to make the loop.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
Have to have the loop.
All right. Okay. I had a question here for the chief. Are you aware of these attempted break-ins, chief?
Off the top of my head, I believe you said about 90-some% were internal,
85%.
85. That comes to mind.
Okay.
Because of the the dollar amount of the loss. Off the top of my head, I can't give you an accurate data. I'd love to provide that for you.
Would you
though,
please
later on.
provide that for the board?
I will.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Tony, anybody else? Tony?
So, you have electric going around, does it have to be electrified? I mean, if they're gonna pierce it, it's gonna trigger an alarm. I mean, does it have to shoot a shock out, or?
But just the design, excuse me, the design of the product, yes, I actually have to have a current on it, but it's a pulse current. So the current is only on that interior wire for 3/10,000ths of a second. And you actually have to measure with an oscilloscope. You can't measure with a voltmeter, it'll just peg a voltmeter. So to actually measure the pulse itself, you have to do it in the laboratory. That's why we go and test the product in the lab with the oscilloscope for the pulse and make sure it's on there for a very short period of time. That's what makes it safe.
Okay. And so right now, there's not a significant problem of freight theft in this facility here in Burridge.
I wouldn't say there's from the external side, no.
I'm sorry?
He's basically said he's had break-ins, but no one's gotten anything significant yet.
No one's got anything significant at the moment.
Okay, so you store freight.
Oh, yes.
It's in every one of these trailers. It's full of freight. And there's all kind of stuff in there. You don't see a truck running down the highway saying Winston cigarettes. It's $1 million worth of cigarettes in a trailer. You don't see a truck riding down the highway saying Intel parts inside.
Right.
Microprocessors. That's $5 million. We just had one stolen in Toronto, Canada, $10 million of microprocessors from Intel. So there's a lot of valuable freight out there that you just don't know about.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Joe?
The distance between the perimeter fence and your fence, is it about a foot?
Well, we always say a foot, but we like it a little tighter than that.
A little tighter.
Since we live in America, we say a foot, but the standard is actually in millimeters, so it's 4 to 8 centimeters, which is about 4 to 8 inches. So we try to keep it that tight, because we want them to work in tandem. You get it too far away, they can cut the perimeter fence, stand there, and start manipulating. You can't manipulate my product, obviously, so we don't want to tell anyone how to do that here in the public forum.
Right.
But you can do that. That's why we try to get them close together. Also on the gates, a lot of the gates are roll gates or chain-driven gates. We've got to dress on the gate very tightly because you usually have a guide or a bollard that guides that gate in there with the chain drives. We've got to get a little tighter on the gates. But most of the time, you know, the signs do our business for us.
Anybody else? Yes, Al?
I can see where basically what you're trying to become is proactive by putting the electrical fence inside the chain link fence, right?
That's what he's trying to do, yes, sir.
You know, and under those conditions and with the amount of freight that goes in and out of that place, I wouldn't have any objection going to the next step on the annexation agreement and having a hearing.
Okay. Anybody in the audience want to comment on this at all or ask a question? Okay, so all the process would be is that we would say, why would we give an indication one way or the other on this if you want to send it to the plan commission? Let them vet it, maybe. And so all we can do is let it go to the,
This doesn't go to the plan commission because
Oh,
it's
at
an
the public
annexation. You conduct the hearing on this one.
And so it doesn't ever go by the plan commission.
No, because this is governed by an annexation agreement. That's what's governing the land use. This is a very particular property that was annexed for that purpose because it's just, we don't have any large truck terminals like this in Burridge, and so for that reason, it's also zone residential. And so the amendments they'd have to go through would be extensive. You'd basically be amending the zoning ordinance to have electric fences in residential neighborhoods, which I don't think you're interested in at this time,
No,
so.
no. I guess we should have a public hearing then. That's our only option.
Unless you have a distinct determination based on a nose count that that's going to be futile for the applicant. As Evan said earlier, your choices are either have the hearing, you can make your decision then, unless you're opposed to even giving them a hearing, you wouldn't call one.
Well, my view is that since you're talking about an electric fence, and I realize that you're minimizing it, but I think residents around there who have been adversely impacted by that truck stop, now it's 24/7, and that goes back to when many years. I think my recommendation would be to have the public hearing so we can get any of the neighbors that want to at least have the opportunity to speak on that didn't know or couldn't make it tonight. So we should, I would think we'd want to at least have a public hearing.
Agree.
Yes.
And also, I'd like the chief to forward to us some information about previous crimes there.
Right, because I know, as a board, at least certainly I haven't heard of any real problems there, but please educate us to what's really going on. So is there, do we need a resolution?
Do you want a motion, Evan, to direct staff to
I would say
schedule a public hearing?
because it's a public hearing, I would prefer one, just to have that on the record.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Motion to direct staff to schedule a public hearing on the application for an amendment to the annexation agreement.
So moved. Go.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You got your public hearing.
Thank you, appreciate it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, D, consideration to direct the Plan Commission to consider amendments to the Business District Shopping Center parking regulations.
Thank you, Mayor. This was at the request of Trustee Snyder. We were directed to place an agenda item to consider these amendments. Trustee Snyder had since stated that the goal of the request is to begin a comprehensive discussion promoting sound planning and economic development policies regarding parking at commercial shopping centers. This request was intentionally made broad, if I am speaking correctly. This is including but not limited to amendments to minimum parking requirements, methods of how we count parking, and possible PUDs at specific properties. If this is approved, the staff will schedule a public hearing for a future Plan Commission meeting.
Okay, first of all, can I get a motion to direct staff to direct the Plan Commission to consider amendments to the Business District Shopping Center parking regulations?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion about this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Okay, 8E, consideration of recommendation to amend PUD and approve special use to permit co-working space at Building 6 of the Village Center, Z11 2019, 800 Village Center Drive, Hassan.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, as stated, this is Z11 2019, 800 Village Center Drive. The petitioner is Mr. Hassan, the owner of the Village Center. This is actually a two-part request at this point. It originally came to the Plan Commission as a three-part request. The request, as stated at this time, is an amendment to PUD Development Ordinance A-834-10-05 to add co-working space as a first-floor special use in Building 6 of the Village Center, and a special use for a co-working space in Building 6 of the Village Center as per the amendment. You'll see on the staff report, this is the Plan Commission staff report we're looking at here, that there is a third request, a revision to the exterior building footprint of Building 6 of the Village Center. This request has been withdrawn by the petitioner, so it is not under consideration at this time. The primary purpose of the final act was to request that we close the breezeway. If you ever stood at Village Green, looking at Building 1000, which is the end building on the north, if you look to your right, there's a breezeway connecting a parking lot to Village Center Drive and the Village Green and a number of other amenities. That request was to close off that breezeway to ensure that there'd be enough leasable space in the connecting property to lease to lifetime work. That petition has since been withdrawn. So moving into the petition itself, this is a petition for lifetime work. This is a co-working space. In very brief detail, this is a space where you can rent office space. Traditionally, an office deal would be a 5-year lease in a designated address with a designated office. This type of layout allows you to rent on a monthly basis in a larger combined environment. So just in the way that Lifetime Fitness operates health clubs, this is the same thing but for offices. You pay a monthly fee, you get to use the entire club, and whatever's available is available. This is the same concept for office. You pay a monthly fee, you go in, there are conference rooms, there's a small seating area, and there's offices you can use, there's telephones, you can use the Wi-Fi there. It really is for people who are on the go, people who don't necessarily need a traditional office lease, but it would be a really high-end use on the office side. This is something that's been getting into and growing on the commercial side, and it's been a very call it a popular use at shopping centers across the country. The request is primarily centered around Building 6. Again, this is located approximately here. You can see the red was previously where the breezeway was being discussed. Again, this is no longer on the table. Just want to point a few things out, just seeing the residents who are here tonight. Again, in orange, we're going to be referring to the orange as the Village Green. Village Center Drive bisects Building 6 and the Village Green. The green is the green star is actually the outdoor residential entrance to Building 6. This is where, if you do not enter through the garage, this is where a resident could enter from the public side. And the yellow outline is the east lot. So if you hear the term east lot discussed at any point, that's what we're referring to. It's this lot on the east side of Building 6. The Plan Commission had considered this request last Monday. Again, the third item was withdrawn. The first vote for an amendment to add co-working space was done by a vote of 6-0. In favor, I'm sorry, 6-0 in favor to recommend that the board approve a request. The second was a vote of 5-1 in favor for a special use for lifetime work. There were 4 basic conditions that were included. 3 of these are boilerplate that come in all special uses, but the most important one that should be considered is condition 4. This is that the breezeway underneath Building 6 shall remain in place as shown. So again, they did withdraw, the petitioner did withdraw their request to amend the building's exterior footprint of Building 6. However, that was covered under this condition by the Plan Commission as well. So you can see they paid a lot of attention to that particular item. There are a number of different details that came out with this petition. Commissioner Farrell is with us this evening to represent the Plan Commission in any other analysis you may require. Certainly there are a lot of issues going on with this, but staff will be here to answer any questions that you may have as we discuss this particular proposal.
Okay, let's start with the board. Any questions from any of the board members? Yes.
Can we hear a little bit more about the concept and how
Is the petitioner here?
how this is working in retail?
Okay, please introduce yourself for the record, and the first question is to give us an overview of the use.
My name is Lawrence Friedman. I'm the attorney for the petitioner. I'm with the firm of Ash Analyst Friedman and Logan, address 77 West Washington Street in Chicago.
Ramsey Hassan, Edwards Realty Company, current owner of the Burr Ridge Village Center.
I think the question is to go into more detail on the concept.
Yeah, give us an overview.
Yeah, this is a co-working space, which is a shared office workspace. This is another service that Lifetime Fitness is offering. Currently, they want to be a lifestyle provider with fitness uses, cafe, spa, physical therapy, and now they're also doing some residential, but not in this town, and office. So they want you to be able to work, live, work out, all that, and they have a concept called a one park concept, where they believe you can park one time, go to get your workout, go to a cafe, and then go to your mobile or shared workspace. This provides an alternative to a lot of professionals, a lot of entrepreneurs, specifically a lot of workers that have offices downtown that would maybe like to not go downtown for a day or two. It is designed to be an in and out type environment, not a static office as a typical office space would be, where you attend the same desk, the same seat from maybe 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. This is not unlike the fitness concept where you purchase a membership and you're allowed to use that facility under the certain level of the membership that you purchase. So just like, for example, Lifetime Fitness probably has 8,000 to 10,000 members. They're not all there at the same time. They count on maybe 30 to 40% utilization at a time. It provides a great convenience to not only the village residents, but the businesses in the area. It provides foot traffic to the retail center. This was a use that we particularly sought out. This was not something that just arrived on our doorstep and we're trying to figure out how to work it in. This was something that we were emphatically pursuing, as we understand the needs of retail and shopping has changed over the last 20 years since the Village Center was designed and the idea came about long before it was built in 2007, 2008. So we're trying to respond to the demands of the current marketplace and create another amenity for businesses and residents.
Would you be running it, or is that Lifetime would be administering the?
Lifetime would be running it. It's another facet of their membership offerings, and they would just be leasing space from us.
In the case it becomes disruptive to the residents, is there some recourse, or who monitors that?
Well, we own and manage the Village Center. I don't see a possibility that this could be any more or less disruptive than any permitted use currently.
Yes, Joe?
One of the good things about our village is parking. So with that office, and we've met before, is let's say you have 200 individuals who signed on a monthly basis for Lifetime. It's Lifetime for folks. Are they going to be constructed or given or secured that they're going to park up in the facilities so that it doesn't basically shut down all the slots? Is that the tentative plan?
Well, again, the reason that they've selected this site is for their one park concept. So when we look at the parking for this concept, we have to also look at the parking field in front of the Lifetime Fitness itself, because they assume that the users of the fitness facility will also be using this facility. And the whole reason they picked this is so nobody would move their car, let's say, from the fitness center to this center. That's not saying that it can't happen, but that is not the intent, and they would have not chosen this if they had to park twice, I guess as they call it. So we will monitor and manage the parking like we do for any other building in the development. If there's issues of disruption, we react as they come.
So would they be told this, I'm sorry, Joe, did you have another question?
No, I'm good. You're right on following up, so go right ahead.
Okay, so will they be informed that the deck is there and that's the preferred parking? I'm sure one of the elephants in the room is that he's locked. I get that you can't guarantee a thing, only death and taxes, as they say. But Lifetime being on one side of the parking deck and this building being on the other side, are your tenants, if you will, or Lifetime's tenants, I understand you just manage it, are they going to be encouraged, informed, cajoled to use the parking deck?
Yeah, I believe that would be the case. We ask all of the employees of any other facility, including the existing office, on site. We do have 40,000 square feet of office use on the site as well. We encourage them to use the parking deck, and a lot of them do, especially as the weather gets colder.
Okay. Anybody else with a question at the board level? Yes, Ken?
Yes, thank you. So for hours of operation, the Village Center operates standard hours, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. What would be the operational hours of this facility?
The operational hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and there is 24-hour access for members.
So we have one other 24-hour day business in this village, and that's the Shell gas station.
It's not a 24-hour business. This is not different than any other office space within the village. You forget your briefcase at your office at Burge. You're allowed to go back to that office at 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m., or if you're finishing an assignment. The hours are 9 to 5, but there is access after that, just like any other office space.
So 9 to 5 is for them to do business, but if they're following up or catching up, then they can hang out.
Correct.
Okay, so let's talk about the parking for a minute. Why wouldn't the 700 building make more sense if you're going to, if you want the one park concept? Why the 800 building?
It's too small. Sure.
The available space is too small.
Yes. That space is just over 11,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
The space we're talking about is just over 18,000.
Okay. Have there been, this question of staff, have there been previous requests at the Village Center for first floor office use?
No, not to our knowledge.
You know, it's funny you talk about the one park concept. I see patrons at Lifetime Fitness driving around trying to find the closest space to the door. So they're going to drive, and there'll be some patrons that go against that concept and will drive over to this space possibly park across from the village center, from the village green, possibly in the east lot. So, yeah, it's a great concept, it's a great idea, but not everybody follows it. Well, what becomes of Barbara's bookstore?
Well, I have the fortunate job of owning that bookstore now, so that's a loss. It was meant to be a great amenity for the community, and the community has spoken, and the sales are terrible, and we're going to be looking at repositioning it within the center, or possibly closing it altogether. It's like any other viable business. If it doesn't make sense, the market has spoken.
Okay. And the salon?
The salon will stay. Will be unaffected, I should say.
Oh, not affected by this, okay.
Correct.
All right. Got some tough questions of the trustees here for a minute. Are there any village or borough elected officials that have a financial interest in the village center? I've heard a rumor. Are there any village or borough elected officials that have received campaign contributions from the property owner or Lifetime Fitness? I've heard rumors of this too. No? Okay, great. Beautiful. So back when the village center was proposed, I was on the plan commission. I participated in all the public hearings, and there was one trustee, Trustee Viveza, and Mayor Grasso, they were on the board at the time. We were told by the developer back then that for the retail component to be successful, the first floor and the entire first floor had to be occupied by retail. And that was a concept that was driven home. So I'm concerned that if this office use was put in place, patrons would be walking north of the village center, stop at Topaz, see what they appear to see as offices to the north, and Design Bar is isolated. They're on an island. They're by themselves, and no one will go down there. Is that a concern of yours?
No, that's not a concern.
No?
Well, and if I can add too, you said you were on the plan commission.
Yes.
That time, I mean, the world is a drastically different place than
Oh, yes, it is.
when this was envisioned. So at the time, they had the right thought process, but in the recession of 2007 and 2008, when this came online, everything changed. And I can see if we were, replacing, vibrant boutiques and, other retail businesses in its place, but this has been vacant space or subsidized space since the center was built. So it obviously was not a concept that made sense then and doesn't make sense now.
Well, it's more complicated than that, and you're an expert at this, but being involved in this from day one, as I have been in these other two trusts.
I'm sorry, I meant the concept of just first floor retail having to be successful, not the concept of the whole village center.
Okay, but yes, things have changed, but with respect to the concept of first floor retail, with respect to bricks and mortar versus the internet, many things have changed, and it's a much more complicated problem than just first floor retail. It's a variety of issues. You can't point the finger at one element and say that's the problem. It's many elements. And yes, it's been vacant since day one, correct, but there are many reasons why it's been vacant, not just one.
Correct, but I was talking about the idea of looking past Topaz and being deterred. I think if there's vibrancy, if there's people, if there's foot traffic, because that's one of the things we've heard over and over, just for the existing business. I mean, there's a third of the businesses in here that are hanging by a thread that really need help, and this is a way to bring foot traffic, to continue to patronize the existing retail stores that are left, the restaurants, et cetera.
It's a way to get foot traffic, but it's not, it's someone there to go to do work, not to spend money. It's the wrong kind of foot traffic.
I respectfully disagree.
Okay. So if I'm at the Design Bar and I want to do my shopping at the Village Center, and I'm going to combine some trips. I'm going to go to two Boston's and buy some pet food, and I may get a Starbucks. When I walk past, there's a synergy amongst the businesses, the retail businesses that are currently there. Okay, there's a wide variety of offerings. We've now taken something off of those wide variety of offerings and putting office space in there. And I think that may hurt the other businesses that are currently there. So we've opened up the door for office on the first floor, and we'll continue to chip away at that. So, that's all my comments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Anita?
Are you planning to put a coffee shop there, where Barbara's bookstore was, or near Avita?
No, that'll be occupied fully by Lifetime Work.
Okay.
Within their space, they have, kitchen areas and a solarium for their own membership access, but not open to the public. We're talking with other tenants as well that have some of those uses, for example. Not in that building, but in that portion.
Because
the north end of the center.
To follow up on what Trustee Francis is saying, if there is a coffee shop, then at least it'll draw some traffic. Because Starbucks is usually...
Well, they restrict us from doing any coffee anywhere else in the center.
WeWorks does.
But you can do
Oh,
restaurants.
no, I'm sorry, Starbucks has an exclusive for coffee.
Yep.
So we cannot lease to any other tenant, but their primary business is coffee.
You can do restaurants, you can do breakfast, you can do other sandwich places, you can do...
On the north end of the center, we're somewhat limited in those uses due to residential above. Some of those may be non-permitted, I'd have to check.
Well, if we don't have any other questions at the board level, then we probably have a few questions from the audience.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
We have no objection to any of the conditions that were recommended in the Plan Commission's recommendation, including ours, apropos of your comment. And the other is, even though we have withdrawn the one matter which would allow us to close off the breezeway, as staff indicated, it's also a condition of the Plan Commission's recommendation that remain open, and we are not disputing that, not asking you to modify that.
Right. It's clear that the breezeway stays the breezeway.
That's our understanding. That's what we're prepared to do.
Thank you. You done? You done?
That's it.
Okay. And who would like to comment? If so, how do we want to handle this? Can we open up that side?
Sure. I got it. You got it?
Yeah.
So
Just a minute.
microphone here, too.
We have a microphone, and we have our magic other shelf over here that we can pull out.
Okay. Mayor Grasso, trustees, green lights on. My name is Greg Dose. I'm with Goldstein Strasky firm, right here in Burr Ridge, and I'm privileged to represent the 850 Village Center Drive Condominium Association, which of course occupies the top 3 stories of the Building 6 and also has a parking garage in the basement there. And the 850 Association and its residents are pleased that the enclosure and blocking of the first floor walkway, or breezeway as we're calling it, the Building 6 is off the table. Very pleased to hear. They are still concerned about the impact of the proposed co-working office use, and particularly with regard to its impact on available parking in the east lot, as pointed out. I think it's, first of all, notable that no independent professional parking analysis was prepared and submitted in support of the Lifetime Work PUD application. The fact that a parking study was not prepared, we think is an acknowledgement that there is likely to be a problem with available parking and that the applicant really doesn't want to call attention to it. The parking situation for the condos, and I've outlined this in the letter, but just briefly, there are 60 dwelling units, condominium. There are 91 dedicated parking spaces in the underground garage. The practical circumstances are that collectively 120 plus residents of the 850 condos have more vehicles than there are parking spaces in the garage, so they rely on the east parking lot for cars that don't have garage spaces. And there are also guests and housekeepers and caregivers that utilize the east parking lot on a daily basis for the benefit of 850 residents. In addition, some of those residents use the garage spaces available during the day. They use the east parking lot if they're running errands, coming and going, much like you might in a single-family home. Pull your car out of the garage for the first trip, come back, park it in the driveway until pulling it into the garage. We estimate that about 30 spaces in the east lot are really needed by the 850 residents on a daily basis. Those 30 spaces, in addition to the 91 that are in the garage, gives you a total of 121, which fits with the village's zoning ordinance requirement for multifamily dwellings, that there be 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit. The lifetime work proposal calls for a build-out initially at 25,000. I heard you say 18, Ramsey, so I'm not sure where we're at today. But initially called for 25,000 build out of office space. And under the village's code, there's 1 parking space required for each 250 square feet of floor area. In math, 25,000, you need 100 parking spaces, or an office floor area of 25,000 square feet. The parking lot in the east of Building 6 has 70 spaces, and if I could pass out for reference the Google Earth photo. I'll get around here, Larry. Should be one for Larry. Gave you one last week. But on it, identify the north end of the village center. 3 residential buildings. Once you have one left?
Yes.
Okay, great. You see on the right, the 850 building, the 801 building on the left or the west side. Counted the parking spaces as best I can. The adjacent parking lots, and adjacent to the 850 building on the same lot is 70 spaces. North on the east side of the 1,000 building, 38 spaces, and then on the west of combining the 1,000 and 801 building are 192 spaces, and then you see remember the parking lot really dedicated to the Lifetime Fitness facility, and then you see the parking deck kind of angled south of the 801 building. The practical matter, there's not enough parking in that 70-space lot for both Lifetime work, offices, and what residents need in the 801, the 850 condo.
Greg, we're talking about the 70 spaces in the east lot.
In the east lot.
So that everybody understands the terminology. We're talking about the east lot.
Yep, the one that's outlined in yellow
Yep.
up on your board there. And to suggest that office workers are going to just park once or just park regularly in the Lifetime Fitness lot and then trek over to Building 6 and trek back, maybe even in the deck, which isn't far away, about the same distance, I guess. I think that's, realistically, people are going to seek convenience of parking as close to their workplace as possible. And we understand Lifetime will be cross-marketing the office space to their fitness club members. There is, as we understand it, no requirement that office space renters be members of the fitness club. We simply just don't know if there's going to be much overlap. And even if there is, it seems just as likely that an office renter would park Building 6 lot and then trek over to Lifetime Fitness for their workout or whatever activity they have, and then come back to work. Again, parking as close to their workplace as possible. Our last meeting, Plan Commission pointed out that the office parking ratio in this village is really the same as the retail parking ratio, 4 per 1,000 level. But I think it was pointed out at the Plan Commission hearing, and Leslie Bowman, I don't know if you're here this evening. Thank you. Leslie's here from the Design Bar, pointed out, and I think eloquently, that retail customers park for a relatively short period of time, half an hour, 2 hours at the most. While office workers can park for a longer period of time, 6, 8, 10 hours. So there's no turnover in the retail parking circumstance, and that allows a greater utilization, the same number of parking spaces. So it's not an apples to apples comparison. The ratios are the same. And we don't think that the office and retail really are compatible in the circumstances. Keeping in mind that the parking lot for Building 6, the east lot, was designed on the basis, original concept for residential and retail uses only. Office was not contemplated, designed in that area. Now, the fact that the Building 6 and the adjacent parking lot were intended only for residential and retail uses is enforced, actually. First, our zoning code, or the PUD, did not allow general office space. And that's why they're seeking the amendment for that, but also by the governor's declaration for the village center. That document contains a list that, like the village code, PUD says here's what's allowed.
Right. So,
I
know you're a lawyer, and I'm going to play judge for a second, so wrap it up, because we have lots of other people here.
Yeah, okay. And
then if there's other time for you to ask some more questions, we can do that. But I want to be sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
I could speak to the two recommendations directly. I'd like to at the appropriate time. What we'd ask you to do this evening is not act on the Plan Commission's recommendations. The request of the 850 Association is consideration of the lifetime proposal be put on hold so the parking situation can be worked out to the satisfaction of the 850 residents. It would be very appropriate for the board to remand this matter back to the Plan Commission with the directive that a thorough parking analysis be prepared and analyzed before the lifetime works proposal is considered. From the perspective of the 850 Association, it would be best that the village commission the parking study rather than the applicant, so that there would be assurance of quality and preparation that the portion paid for. But the proposal before you introduces a use that was not anticipated in the design of the village center and indeed was prohibited. It proposes the use of a large-scale, different use at location that's really least likely to accommodate it. The 850 Association feels strongly that the availability for parking for residents needs to be protected. At a minimum, a thorough professional and independent parking analysis should be prepared and studied before further action is taken. If you're inclined to take action, I would have one comment with regard to, first of all, the fourth provision, the fourth condition that was put forward as wording that's put in the Plan Commission's report. Something to the effect that the breezeway is underneath the building and it's to remain in place as shown. So it's not underneath the building on the first floor, and if they're saying as shown, the plan they showing it to be blocked off. So it really needs to be reworded so in order to reflect the intention of the Plan Commission to prohibit any alteration of the existing walkway. It also suggests to you that you're trying to move forward, even amending the ordinance to allow this co-working space to take some time to consider the terminology. To just call it, co-working space is not a self-defining term, if you will, like a hair salon or a bicycle shop. No, it's been used in the context of office facilities. It could be construed differently. It might be construed as allowing, say, a cooperative of artisans, such as jewelry designers, ceramic makers, which might be a nice thing in the village center, or it could be construed to allow a group of, say, independent motorcycle mechanics to share a shop. Realistic, but I would work on that terminology, just calling it co-working space without any better definition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get the comments first, aggregate them, and then try to be efficient with our time, but let everybody speak. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this subject? Yes, Leslie?
So, this is a difficult position.
Just identify yourself. We know who you are, but identify.
I'm Leslie Bowman. I'm the owner of the Design Bar, and I am also a resident of the 1000 building. It's difficult for me to get up here and speak about this in public. It's difficult for me to have a position on this, knowing that I want them all to succeed. I'm not against having it be successful. What I am against is the thought that I have to listen in public to the owner say that they don't worry about my business. I'm going to give you the reality of foot traffic in the mall. Jamie's Farm was there today, an event in the mall. Not one person from that event came in our store. The concerts happen every single Friday. Not one person comes into the store. In fact, it's one of the worst sales days that I have. No one comes in and no one visits. On top of that, we had an event in the mall that Barbara's Bookstore was a place where the Easter Bunny was, and from the Easter Bunny in the community room to my store is maybe 50 feet. Not one person came in to get an egg. So for foot traffic in the mall to work, there has to be some other synergy besides sticking 200 people, 300 people in there to just visit the mall. It's really disheartening to me that I haven't been reached out to. You knew my position, you knew I was concerned about it, and I haven't been talked to once. So I want to be a partner. I want to have the mall succeed, but to listen to you say that you're not worried about me being an island is frustrating to me. And I'm sorry that I have to do this in public, but I think that you all need to understand that foot traffic does not equal sales, period, end of story. I am the living proof of it. So I would agree that you should maybe table it, look at options, come up with a plan for the mall in its entirety, not just for bringing 200 people down there. And I agree with the parking. It's gonna cut people off. It's not gonna serve the community well. It's gonna hurt the other retailers. And we still have 10,000 square feet to rent down at that other end as well. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, Mana?
Yes, my name is James Allenson, and I'm a resident of 1000 Village Center Drive. I would like to say to the owners of the center, I agree with Leslie 100%. I have developed and built and still own in my family commercial and residential real estate. I have done it most of my life. And it would be a disaster for anybody to be on the end of that mall and get business from the front all the way to the back. I've been there 6.5 years. I moved into the building when I was probably the third person in the building. I have retired in the last 3 years, and I'm around the building a lot. I have seen multiple employees of the mall park behind the Design Bar. They park on the east side of the 1000 building. We even get people coming in there parking their cars just to have lunch. And currently, I watch the parking lot behind this Design Bar, and on average, every day, I'd say there's times that 50% of the parking is taken up. And in our side, probably half on a daily basis. Today, the east side of the parking lot of the 1000 building was half taken up. And I think they should be a little more concerned about their property to the west of the mall. It has it looks terrible. There is plywood up there. It's been up there probably since I moved in. I see rats coming around there. I walk the mall every day. I run. They should be more concerned about attracting somebody and to have attention, to have the place look better than what it does. I mean, to have that plywood up there for all these years, nobody can see what the property looks like. They don't even look at it. They don't even know it's a rental. I'll conclude. I've been in the business. I'm 71 years old, and I have to say, you would do the mall an injustice to put what you want to put in there. Thank you for your time.
My name's Krista Miller. I'm a resident at 850 Village Center, and I have just a couple questions. Number one, you said that you have options about things that you can put in there besides office space, and I would like to know if those things have to go through an approval process.
Sorry,
I would like to know if those options, the other options, didn't you say that you had other options besides office space, cafes, all kinds of things?
For this particular space?
Yes.
No other options at
Okay,
this
no
time.
other option. Okay.
I was talking in context of the entire center. We're working a lot of different leads, a lot of different
Okay.
interests we're trying to.
Then the second thing is security. With this significant increase in influx of people and parking, will there be an increase in security? Our garage where we park is on that back side where that parking lot is. The garage door stays up for quite a while we're going in and out. It's very easy for somebody to just walk back there and stand behind the bushes and just get in. So now we've got all these additional people coming and going, and I'd be interested to know what kind of security program is going to be put in place. You know, if there's going to be additional security. And I agree with the traffic, with the design bar. There have been so many things that have been tried to no avail. They changed the sculpture and the flowers. They moved it to a fireplace. It's a place for kids to play now. It didn't increase traffic at all for retail. And frankly, the attitude about you're not concerned about the design bar is concerning to me. If you're not concerned about them, maybe you're not concerned about the residents and the disruption either. And I think it's naive to think that there won't be any further disruption that's an increase to what we have now.
So if I could answer your first question regarding security, we do have 24/7 security on site currently. Within the business of Lifetime Work, they have, it's a key fob system. So, you know, if it happens to be, you know, outside of the hours of 9 to 5 when there are 3 on-site employees, there's a key fob system to get in with a closed-circuit CCTV system that records anyone coming in and out of their particular business. I'd just like to point out the average age of a Lifetime Work user is 45 and a professional in a high affluent community. So, you know, do I think that we need to install further security protocols to combat, you know, a 45-year-old executive? Not at this time, but we're very reactive. If that becomes an issue, certainly we will institute policies to make it safer at the Village Center. And I'd also like to correct, I never said that I did not, you know, I was not concerned about Design Bar's business or foot traffic. I just disagreed, saying I'm not worried that there will be a lack of foot traffic because of this business. I think it'll actually increase the business. So I'm very concerned about all the tenants, especially the mom and pop businesses. They're always the backbones of any community of the United States. It's mom and pop businesses that keep it running. So those we foster even more than the corporations.
Okay. Somebody else? Ladies first.
Hi, my name's Gia Orman. I'm a resident in 1000 Village Center. I've been at both meetings, and I'm a commercial banker. I do commercial real estate lending. I don't know Ramsey personally, but I know his reputation, and I have met him before. I have no interest in anything other than listening to what everybody says and making sure that where we live stays great. However, and I agree with everything everybody said. I just want to show the other side. I have a different perspective, and I'm not trying to get anyone upset. My perspective is this center has been doing poorly for years. It's pretty well known. The parking may not have been right ever. There might not have been enough parking since the beginning. And I think we have, while Ramsey may sound cocky, and I'm going to say you kind of do, they're experienced. They're very well experienced and well respected in the commercial real estate world. There are many banks that work with them. They've turned around several failing retail properties that I know of, including in Orland Park. And I think we need to not be combative with them, but we should listen, and we should try to see all sides, and the village should also. I'm not saying I agree with anything. The parking is a major problem, but I think they're willing to work with the village, with us, and with all the businesses, including Leslie, who is my neighbor and who I adore. So all I'm saying is we need to be more open-minded to everybody's side, not just angry people who have been used to vacancies underneath their homes. The breezeway was an issue. They agreed to take that part off the table. But I think that this co-work, which I've done alone on with another group, I think it's the future. I don't think it's dangerous. I've done co-living, I've done co-work, and I don't think it's dangerous, and I think it will be good for the community. That's just my opinion, and I wanted to say it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Atkinson. I'm the president of the 850 Village Center Drive building. And parking is a major concern for our residents and the existing retailers. Office space, especially co-working office space, was not taken into consideration when the Village Center was built. We would like to see an independent engineering study on the parking area commissioned by the village. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name's Mike Yost. I'm also a resident at 850 building, and I'm also on the board. I want to thank Design Bar for being a great neighbor. They've trying real hard to keep the foot traffic going there and advertising, and Jim's out there cooking hamburgers, so I want to thank them for being a great neighbor. But last week, I thought the gentleman from Lifetime Works had mentioned if you didn't get the continuous space, that there was 100% they weren't interested, they were leaving, they weren't interested. That's changed, because we keep on talking about Lifetime Works. And he said last week, 100% he wasn't interested if he didn't get that space. Is that still alive?
The best I can say is, despite the circumstances, we're trying to get them to see this a little differently based on the comments from the residents and work within the context of not moving the breezeway. I can't guarantee that this deal will still go forward, but I can only guarantee that I'm going to try within the confines of the recommendations of the Plan Commission.
Hi, my name is Diane Jovic, and I own a unit at 850 Village Center. I have a couple of questions, if I may. How long ago did you purchase Burridge Center?
About 6 months.
6 months ago. Have you reached out to offer incentives to any businesses to come into the center since you've purchased it?
Offered incentives to new businesses to occupy vacant space at the center?
Yes.
Yes.
And no one has come forward?
Well, this is a very fluid process, so we're, have many different fronts, are talking to many different tenants, and, we're making it very attractive for the tenants that we want to come into the Village Center to be economically feasible to do so, and eliminating some of the barriers that may have been up previously. So I can tell you there are several deals that did not happen with the prior owner that we are trying to resurrect that may have been a good use for the center, but for one reason or another, maybe based on economics, did not move forward.
Probably because, my opinion, probably because they were not willing to work with any of the businesses to lower some of their rents, to give them incentives to come in. 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, whatever they can to bring in businesses. I believe that was a big issue on the part of the original owner. Now, you came in 6 months ago, and the first thing that rather than even one business coming into the center, the first thing that you did was to try to bring in office spaces, which I believe, I don't know, how many desks would you have there?
I believe
200?
there's
284 chairs times $600 a month. I believe that's about $1.8 million annually, correct?
That's not my business.
I understand that, but that's, every business, like you said earlier, is a business and the bottom line of any business. If you were to lease that space out to a commercial or retail, I believe at $33, is it 33, 35? It's $500,000 a year, correct? That's a big difference of 1.8 million versus
I need
600,000
to
income.
correct you on that. We don't take the fees of every office. They pay us one lump sum of rent, which is a lot less than $30 a square foot to rent the space, and then they go ahead and offer that service. So what's important to remember is every office worker that comes in there is an entrepreneur, is a small business person that we're bringing to the center, that we're fostering an expansion. It almost serves like an incubator. Right now, and this is the whole reason why it works, and I'll speak a little bit on it. There's a disconnect between the person working from home and then having to lease an office space, where you're committed to mostly, several year commitments, and it's a big capital expenditure, and then you're constrained within the confines of maybe you rent 2,000 square feet, and now you have to break a lease 2-3 years in because you're expanding and have to figure those things out. This is flexible workspace. This allows for, the stay-at-home mom for, the last 18 years to start a business and doesn't have to be from the home, can go in an office setting, and collaboration and synergies and the energy of the creative environment is what fosters the growth in the community. And this is kind of what the basic community is, and that's all we're trying to do. And I don't run the Lifetime Work business. We're only leasing to them. And it's a consideration. Lifetime Fitness has been a great corporate citizen for many years. I mean, as we said before in the last meeting, without Lifetime Fitness, there is no village center. There just simply isn't. They are the anchor. So all we're trying to do is expand the offerings. That's probably why a lot of people moved, so near Lifetime Fitness as well. It's a great amenity to have, and they're just adding one more amenity to their wonderful menu. And we're trying to make that work within the context of this space we have, and still utilize vacant space that's there.
Yes, they have been the anchor there. However, at the same time, we, as all the residents of Burr Ridge, and I believe the mayor, the trustees, we would like to see retail space be filled versus office space. We have a whole second floor. The whole mall is all offices. Secondary, if you already purchased Barbara's Bookstore because you needed that space to fill there, how do we know that Leslie's not next? Or even our hair salon, or the next building over if this does that well, and the bottom line has become so great that you're going to take every other building. Now we set a precedence. If we allow you to do that in this building, they've set the precedence, and if you pass this, then you're setting a precedence for him to be able to do it in another building. So before you know it, we're going to get filled with office spaces. The whole mall, if I may just finish, the whole mall will be finished, or half of it will be with offices, no income for our community, no taxes by retail spaces, and no place for us to shop or do anything else. So if I may just finish in conclusion that if you were to offer incentives and bring in businesses, which will bring in other businesses, purchase the mall for $15 million, which was worth $150 million. So I believe that there is some place there that you should consider, because you were able to do that, and God bless. We're great, we're fortunate that somebody else came into the mall with a different idea, but we're looking for that different idea. We're looking for that different that we didn't have with the previous owner.
And I 100% agree with that. And we are looking for any business to come in. I will do a 1-month lease for $1 for a business that I want to come in here, and I think we'll draw foot traffic to see if it'll work. I mean, it has to fit certain criteria, but we're being very aggressive. I mean, there's some retail tenants we're going to announce shortly that are probably the worst deals I've ever done in my life, because we feel it's going to add value to the center. We're not, and I'd like to correct you, I did not purchase Barbara's Bookstore. It kind of was, it came with the center, let's say. This was something that's been subsidized, and it just didn't make financial sense to continue to subsidize something the community is not patronizing. I mean, it's simple economics. And would we like to have all retail space occupied? Of course we would, but that's not the world we live in today. And it's not for a lack of effort or a lack of economic incentives. And I mean, personally, if you have or know somebody that has a business that would like to locate inside the Burr Ridge Village Center, I would be more than happy to talk.
Okay, and we have others.
Yes.
If you're done? Okay.
Thank you. I
You're
will
welcome.
just one more thing to say to the board, to the mayor and to the trustees. Please push this off. Don't pass on it that quickly because it affects every one of us in this community. Thank you.
How many more people want to speak? No, you, please, no. How many more people want to speak? I'm just want to try to, okay, this might be the last one. If anybody changes their mind, of course, they can come up, yes.
Mayor Grasso and the board and Mr. Azan, all my fellow residents here, thank you for giving me a moment to speak.
We need your
My
name.
name is Eloise Carnavale. I am a resident at 850 Village Center Drive. I was the first owner back in 2008. I'm just going to, last week, I think you heard me talk about one issue that was very important to me, and that was resolved, and I'm very happy about that. Today, though, I'd like to address an issue about security. I'm a 33-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department. I've spent not only my years as a detective, but I also went on, got my doctorate degree, was an instructor at Calumet College in law enforcement. I've heard spent years in research and development in the police department, have a somewhat broad experience as far as security. And that's what I'd like to address here today. I mentioned it last week. I am really concerned. I know you talk about having security. When you work in Chicago, when you work on the streets, I see one or two security walking around Burr Ridge. It doesn't give me I know it's a safe community, but my main concern is that 9 to 5 and then that access for 24 hours, that anybody could come into that building and have access to it. I talked about background checks. You somewhat compared it to other customers of retail services, but there really, as our lawyer demonstrated and addressed, there is not a compatibility there. I am very concerned about who, we have the top 3 levels, that anybody could go into that building for 24 hours. Who are they bringing in? Anyway, that's basically my concern. I'd like to have that addressed. I don't want anything passed tonight. I think there should be a real address. Parking is number 1 issue, but I think we have to address security. Because we have a 24-hour access here of people we don't know. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very quickly, I just have a question.
We just need
Oh, I'm sorry. I was up here last week. I didn't think I had to announce again.
Just because of the
Korean Cooksta, my husband Norbert Cooksta. We're in the 850 building, and we've lived here for 3 years. My mother had a condo, which we still have also here since 2006. My son has a condo in the building, so it's a whole family thing. My question is, I know you have said that you took over an Orland Park shopping area. Did they also have condominiums on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th floor, 5th floor? Was it a retail like ours?
It was a mixed-use property, but different. There was no retail on top, no residential on top of retail.
I think that's our biggest thing here, is we all have money invested, and we, as you, because you own the village, want to see you do well, and we don't want to lose money, because now our condos are coming back again, and they're raising in price, and we're very happy about it. And since I've actually lived here in the last 3 years, it's much busier here. There's not a lot of parking. So we do need the parking behind our building for many reasons. So I'm hoping and praying that you'll figure something else out. Did you ever consider using the top floor of the parking garage, which is right by Lifetime, so that they can just come down the elevator and walk across the street if you decide to go through with this? Or I know you're making it maybe smaller because of not having the walkway, even across the street where they're closer to Lifetime, they can walk there. And maybe start smaller, and then if it works, in the next year or two, bring it into maybe, other places in the mall. Just my last thing, years back, we did try with Opus to open Mama Papa ice cream, high-end ice cream candy, Cupid's, that they have it in Orland. And we were sitting at the final, and we were going to sign, and they would not give us an exclusive. They compared this to Oakbrook. Well, our Burridge Center is not Oakbrook. They could have 3 ice cream stores there and still everybody do good. So I hope you would keep that in mind when it comes to retail. And they weren't giving us any kind of a great deal either. But we lived in the building. We thought we'll have an ice cream candy store there. And it didn't go through because they didn't give us any consideration with it. So that's about it. Good luck to you, and I hope we all get what we want out of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone out in the wings? Okay. Let me make some comments. I do bring a perspective here, as I was the mayor when this village center was built. And this is just my reaction to what I've heard tonight. I certainly would want retail if it could happen. I also have to realize that I cut the ribbon on that village center over 10 years ago, and there's been no retail down at that end of the village center. Not only that, we've had stores come and some go. The restaurants seem to do fine, but retail, not so well. Barber Books has been subsidized since day one. Never, when Opus owned the village center, they put barbers there in order to get foot traffic, but it never made any money as far as I know, as far as Opus told us. So there's been a problem down there. If I heard correctly tonight what the issues are, the number one seems to be parking. Then there's the overall philosophical use of office space on the first floor, and whether or not that would in fact bring foot traffic. And then, as always, there's a concern about security. On that security issue, I will tell you, I had my law office over the Topaz space over the Eddie Bowers, and there were times that I had to be there at night on some cases and things. But not frequently. I would suspect that the type of businesses coming in, I would suspect, but I don't know how you could give us some assurance there, would be typical 9 to 5, and occasionally, obviously, some people might have to stay later, as they did that I did. But I don't think that would be too much of a concern. A parking study, I don't know what a parking study could possibly do. We know what the parking is. What it sounds like is that it's principally the east lot and the use of the east lot. There are, 70 spaces in that part of the east lot?
Yes.
And as I understood it, there are 90 spaces underground, and 60 units times 2, 120. Is there an ability to save 30 spaces for residential use in the east lot? I'm just raising questions, okay? Is there an ability to reserve 30 spaces for residential And that would be a big ask by the residents, because obviously if you've got retail there, the people going in and out of the retail stores would probably use, if they wanted to, the east lot. So, just because it's day office use doesn't necessarily mean that retail, if it wasn't there, wouldn't impact the east lot either. So, would you be here objecting to retail and if it was going to use the east lot?
No.
Who knows? No? Okay. I can tell you that I've had some conversations with Ramsey. I was impressed from day one. 6 months might be generous. He's still getting his feet under him. He wanted to hit the ground running. He is trying to make this village center work. We all want it to work. It has to work, and it can't stay unoccupied. So I do commend him for coming up with some ideas that could maybe jumpstart what's going on there. I know he's looking at other concepts that are much more traditional retail, and this seems to be a demand, and it's something I think we have to consider. Maybe we should send it back to the Plan Commission to come to work with this concept. But let me ask you this, Ramsey. The one thing that did hit my ear is, if we do all of this and do all the heavy lifting and send it back to the Plan Commission and come up with a parking solution, is LifeWorks going to do the deal? I mean, should we first know that there's going to be a deal before we go through all of this, and then LifeWorks says we don't want to do it anyhow? I'm trying to work with you here in a public forum, but how do we assure all of us who are willing to consider alternatives, want this to happen, make it work for the residents, and then find out at the end of the day LifeWorks won't do it?
There's no guarantee, and to be honest with you, the lifetime work gentleman that was here, for the Plan Commission meeting, everything he said was completely true. He may have worded it, if we don't close the breezeway, we can't do it, but what he really meant was, if I don't have this certain number of square footage, my concept doesn't make economical sense. So what we're trying to do is assure them that we've addressed the concerns of the Plan Commission, get an approval at this board meeting tonight, and I'll tell you what we've done behind the scenes too, and I didn't expect to really go into this, but they walked like they said they would. They said, you guys Ramsey, you blindsided me. You didn't think it was going to be a 4-hour meeting. Everyone hates us. They don't like the concept. Why did you make me do this? And I said, listen, number one, I didn't know that, I didn't realize there's such strong opposition to closing the breezeway. So this is what the public meetings are for, to hear concerns and try and address them. So what I did leave a message and a note, I should say, for Lifetime Work was, I'm going to move ahead and try and get the approval this evening in within the confines of 18,000 square feet, not closing the breezeway. Maybe we'll take the lead as a landlord, our architect, and redesign your space based on the test fit that you provided, and we will see if we can make it work for you. Would you at least be willing to listen to us if I come to you with an approval in hand from the village board and our architect redesigned your space? Will you at least consider it? And they said, we will consider that. I think if I went back and said, we didn't get approval at the board, this would send a direct message to them that not to spend any more time on this, not to spend any more money or heartache. They're going to open another unit, probably in Oak Brook, and they'll go to other communities that welcome them with open arms, and maybe properties that are more conducive to what they're trying to do without the opposition. So that's the honest truth. We're trying to keep this alive by taking the onus on ourselves as landlord to get an approval at the board based on Plan Commission's recommendation, redesign their space, and then hope that they're still willing to continue to pursue occupancy in the village center.
Greg, could you step up for a second? Do you know that if we were able to reserve 30 spaces in the east lot, would that be acceptable?
Yes.
Can we do that?
It's more of a question for petitioner. They've read the recitals more closely than I have.
So I'd just like to talk a little bit about these properties and refute a couple things that, gentlemen said offices were never contemplated. That's incorrect. They were contemplated. It's in the PUD. There's certain types of offices, some that don't really exist anymore, like travel agencies, real estate offices, insurance offices, things like of that
I
nature.
disagree.
Or any other office that declarant deems necessary. It's kind of a blanket, over that. So they were contemplated from the beginning in the original documents. The nature of the retail, turnover, coming in and out, that would be true for a traditional shopping center. This is not a traditional shopping center. This is a lifestyle center. The whole nature of this specific center is to park and spend hours patronizing the different businesses and not move your car. That's the exact purpose of this center and why there's several parking fields and a parking deck, is to do that. So you don't have to move your car for several hours, and by adding food and other services and entertainment, you prolong the stay. That's what we're trying to do. So that also was specifically designed for. And the parking ratios in a multifamily development in Burr Ridge, I've heard, is the ratios are 2 to 1. Where in the Village Center, they're 1.5 to 1. I would assume when you're moving into a mixed-use development, you take into account the mix of uses. And if there was a specific need for parking, and it was that inherent in your purchasing decisions, that maybe you would move to a property that was a single-use property, where you had a designated parking lot and designated parking spots. But this would be very difficult to do in the context of a 200,000 square foot retail center with 40,000 square feet of offices, along with 200 condos that are supposed to share. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing here. So we're not trying to take parking away from anybody, but we do realize that with the vacancy for so long, residents have gotten used to having an empty parking spot. And just as the gentleman said, they have 91 parking spaces underground, but they don't always use it in the context of day-to-day activities. Well, that's okay, but if I were to put an Apple store underneath here, there would be no parking ever, for that type of retail use, which is permitted, and we wouldn't even be in front of the board right now. So would I work with the residents on parking? Of course we would. We're all neighbors here. I would love to do that. If there's an issue with, but we don't know what the issue is yet. So I am hesitant to try and find solutions to an issue we don't know is there yet. So if there is an issue and we're saying, hey, the residents are getting squeezed out of parking because of then of course we will mandate a certain number of parking spaces for the office use and direct people to the parking garage and monitor that and police it just like we do the other uses. We monitor the office use on the second level now that aren't allowed to park in Village Center Drive. Employees, Pace bus, patrons, we still see walking back and forth. So these are all things in the normal context of our property management, that we have to deal with, and we take those issues as they come and work with the village and the other stakeholders, associations to help resolve. But I'd be remiss if I can just say now, we'll solve the issue by putting 30 parking spaces to the side because we don't know yet.
Okay, so if the issue comes up, and what you're saying, Greg, is that the residents in the building do use that east lot, and they're afraid that certain, I'm sure some of them do every day. But are you willing to say that if it does become a documented, and maybe we put that on the homeowners association to document that these spaces are being taken up by homeowners there, that you will then look to adjust it so that there's some equity and the residents will get priority of some of those spots over the day renters?
I'm agreeing to work on the issues, yes. Instead of giving the residents priority, I would rather limit the businesses than give residents, if that makes sense. That's just another way of freeing up more spaces instead of assigning spaces.
Just talk about that a little bit more. I don't hear it.
So we may limit the amount of, let's say, lifetime work members that can park in that lot at any time, police that. Maybe it's with a permit, of some sort. And then we go around, and if they don't have the permit, we put a warning, something like that.
It achieves the same result.
It does, yeah.
Okay? I mean, we're trying to work this out.
I appreciate
Okay?
it.
And believe me, in my heart, as a traditional, I'd love to see retail, but the fact of the matter, history tells us it hasn't come. It's been for a number of reasons, not one reason, but I think we're trying to get a creative solution to 18,000 square feet. Your plans for the rest of the village center, is it retail?
It's a mix of uses. I mean, we are going to announce a very significant retail tenant shortly. But yeah, we are moving on all fronts to try and get more retail businesses in. Restaurants, cafes, small boutiques. We want to have even a pop-up shop program. So that was to one of the public's comments are we going to give incentives and things like, yes, as I said before, I'll do a 1-month rental if someone would add value to the center and has a business that makes sense to put in with the other businesses. Yes.
Well, and then have you thought about how these day renters, office people, to incentivize them to stay, as you say, they're supposed to park once and stay. How are they going to use our restaurants, our stores, the design bar?
So I provided some supporting studies, articles, and documents to staff on how the introduction of co-working space and flexible office space actually increases sales tax, increases foot traffic, increases retail sales when it's done, and that's why every single mall or retail center of significance in the United States is seeking out these tenants. And I understand the complexities, but also the special place that Burr Ridge is and the high-end nature that we need to maintain, especially in the village center, which is a reflection of the whole community. And that's why we're only talking about the best co-working tenant possible. There are some other startups, things like that we would never even consider. So if we want the cream of the crop and the best of the best in this particular category, that's who we've courted and who we've brought to the doorstep.
Are we getting closer?
Really, we need the reserve parking. That's where we really need to start.
Well, you don't, okay. I mean,
What do we do 3-4 times a year too, where you're doing the garage floors, we tell everybody to park outside?
you'll have to adjust on those situations, like we all do, on our streets or things like that, to the extent it happens. Yeah, what I think is trying to happen here is that we're going to bring new life to the village center. There has been more traffic down there. Your condo values are going up. Our homes in Burr Ridge are sometimes, for most of us, certainly for me, our principal assets. So we are trying, we've been trying, I tried then, I'm trying now, this board is trying, the Plan Commission tries, you're all trying to revitalize this village center. I think we probably, when we heard the new owner was coming in, we were probably thrilled because it wasn't working with Opus, okay? And Ramsey's trying a new approach. I think we have to keep our eyes open to something new that seems to be in demand. And I'm trying to provide a parking solution, but we may not be able to give you reserve parking, although you're getting a commitment on the record that if a problem exists, I know, but we don't get everything in life, and I know politics is about no compromise, but I think life really is about compromise. So, we're trying to work a deal here. Yes?
Come on up.
Greg touched on this, but we have 60 units. If you have a straight two bedroom without a den, or a 1 bedroom, you have only 1 parking space, okay? So that's half of our units. Half of our units have only 1 parking space. Those half of our units have typically a significant other, they have 2 cars. And when we bought in here knowing the reciprocal agreement states that we have access to that rear parking lot. We bought in here knowing that people that have one bedroom or a straight two bedroom, that they're going to be able to park there, and now you're going to take that away. That's going to affect our property values. And the residents, it's very unfair. You know, we want to have, like Greg said, if we can have 30 spaces reserved for the residents, that's what we want. I mean, you can't take that away from the residents.
Okay, but, I mean, we're not trying to take anything away from the residents, right?
But if you're saying, well, it's going to be, you know, like a scramble to get a parking space, I mean, that's not right. These residents, they're all here because we want, the parking is an issue. We want those 30 spaces.
But if it had all filled up with retail, as we had hoped it would, but never did, do you think that you'd have the half-vacant lot that exists during the daytime now? People tend, I'm told, okay, they don't necessarily, they want to park on the ground. They want to park right out front or right in the back. So if it was retail, wouldn't they tend to all park in the east lot before they would go into the deck?
Some would, some
With
wouldn't.
the breezeway there and all?
I understand residents can't park in the deck. Declaration says no parking for residents.
Okay. Oh,
And we can't park in front of the building either.
right.
So I mean, that is our only spot to park.
So we
You
need
want
to,
to affect our property value. You want these residents to sell their units because now they only have one parking space?
no,
I mean,
we're trying to work something out here. I'm not trying to make it onerous on the residents at all. I'm trying to come up with a solution. And he's saying, okay, to 30 here, we're getting a little pushback. So I'm just trying to, you know, we've spent the time, we want to spend the time. Sure.
I heard trustee Francis, and I also go back to when this thing was originally passed. I hate to admit it, but I represented Opus. And I was involved in all
It's your fault. No.
You did vote for it. I don't believe you did, but he did. But I'll take the blame. That was always contemplated to be a shared lot. And it was never contemplated to be allocated to anybody in particular. And the concept was not that it would be shared for this use. No one contemplated this
Not
use.
with this use.
But it was contemplated to be shared for retail. And, you know, he gave you the extreme example of an Apple store, and that's not likely to happen there. But just have regular, ordinary retail that doesn't require us to come and amend the PUD and allows us to just come and get a permit. They're gonna use up a lot, or a good part of it. And there was never, at the time it was passed, and we can all look back and say maybe it should have been different. It was a 1.5 to 1 with the idea that they would have shared participation in those lots, the ones we're talking about tonight, with the retail. We're not trying to change that. And I think the commitment that he's making is that we can sit down, and if it becomes a problem, now, they're not going to have if this goes in, they're not going to have as many open spaces then as they do now. I get it. You know, it's like the vacant lot next door to you when the house goes up. Gee, I used to like to look out and see it was vacant. Well, something's going to go there. And if this gets turned down, something's going to go there. It'll be retail if the market ever comes around and allows it. He sure tried to put it there. But the reality is we will work with them. And he's made a commitment tonight. Maybe, and I can't promise it without looking, maybe there's some auxiliary or some other parking he can provide as a basis for them if that lot gets filled. When the time comes and we have to work, that also can be in the mix at that time. We'll be open-minded about it. But you're sitting there with a space that was always contemplated to be used by other, or at least with, the owners of those units. We're not talking about anything different.
Mayor, well, so just let me ask one more question. So let's see, 70 spaces? If it was 25 or 30 reserved, but the residents can't use the rest, can't use the other 40. Can't have it both ways.
Mayor,
Let me finish, please, and I'll.
Sure.
We'll let everybody speak tonight. This is, okay, this is good stuff. We all got good minds. We're trying to work something out. Then you've got 40 other spaces, which is more than half. If I'm, 70, 30, we do 25 and, So if they want their 25 or 30, I'm already cutting you down by 5. Then they have to then agree they can't use the rest, okay? And so if there's somebody in there gets there first in the building and the others just, they're gonna have to find somewhere else. So does that work?
I think it sets a dangerous precedent for uses coming in and people, grabbing spots that is really shared. I mean, I thought the idea of bringing an office use here was almost the most perfect use that could be contemplated for this building. No noise factor, the daytime. So that's essentially what shared parking should be, where, during the day, maybe the offices use 60, 70, 80% of the available spots. But then after 5, those become open, and now 80% are used by, either residents or, if there were other retail businesses in the area, the idea of having, 30 spaces, sitting unusable, between 9 to 5, I just don't think that was the intent in the original documentation. But are we willing to work on it? Yes. I just can't see us setting aside, 30 spaces, because when I looked at investing in this, we looked at all the documents, the planning, the shared parking, and thought, this is how these centers work. This is how every other center we have, works that contains residential. Some are assigned or have garages, and others, are just shared parking, that they're complementary uses. I mean, the residential complements the retail and the restaurants and the office perfectly.
Leslie, yes?
No,
Can you get up? Can you come up here, please?
Eloise Turnbull,
Eloise, just let me hear from Leslie, and then you're next. But you have to come up.
So there's currently a rule in the mall that if you're an employee of a store, you have to park in certain areas. So while I appreciate the fact that, yes, there might be 25,000 square feet plus 10,000 plus whatever all that square footage is down there, and yes, there might be retailers down there that are taking up that same parking spot, it's not the same as somebody's coming there to work. All my employees are required to either park in the lot behind the stores or to park in the buildings upstairs. So why can't you enforce that same exact rule with the people who are using that? That would solve a whole lot of issues.
Well, and I think we talked about this last time, and we did say that we would work on that.
No, but why can't you make that be the rule? So you were talking about the lot. So that lot back there isn't only used for the residents of the building. The people who are employed by me work there. I have approximately 10 employees who take up probably, maybe on any given day, 6 or 8 spots. HEMA has people that park back there as well. Barbara's parks back there. Plus you have the residents. Right now, honestly, if you look at the lot, it's mostly full anyway. So have you ever really looked at the lot? There's maybe 20 spaces open on a regular basis. So why can you not enforce, if they're going to be co-working, I get that they're customers, but it's not the same as, if you want a special use for office, then the people who are using that are office people, the same as the people who use the office. I have an office above Eddie Bauer. I actually am in your old office, to be a matter of fact.
I'm glad it's getting used.
Yes. So I use that. I only go there for 3-4 hours a day. Like you're saying, a coworker is going to use it. But if I had a drive there, I would still have to park upstairs. So why would you not enforce that same exact rule that is prevalent for all the offices that are there, plus then all of the employees of all the center's retail stores there, the same thing? It's not the same. It just isn't. A retail space, I would gladly welcome an Apple store taking up the space, because you know why? That person's only going to be there for 2 hours. They're not going to be there for 4 hours. And the guy from Lifetime even sat here and said last week that basically what they're going to do is they're going to park in one spot, right? And they're going to start their day there, and then they're going to go to Lifetime, and then they're going to go there. What's going to happen, and I said this last week, I see it all the time. All the spaces along the Village Green are going to get taken up. Then the spaces in front of Eddie Bauer and Hampton Social are going to get taken up. And you're going to kill not only the retailers down there, but you're going to start killing all the retailers that are in the mall, because nobody likes to park in the parking garage. Don't know why, they just don't. My employees don't even like it.
Interesting question. Well, let me ask this question. So if someone is at LifeWorks and is going to be there 9 to 5, they can park in front of Eddie Bowers and Hampton Social and take up that parking space all day?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, no, we talk with, I mean, and this is not a one size fits all as well. So there's a happy medium here, and if we see that as a problem, we will react to it. I mean, the tenant who has done, who wants to be here is telling us that's not going to be a problem. I have to take their word for it because I don't know their business. I actually think that most people will want to park in the west lot or here because that's directly in between Lifetime Fitness and Lifetime Work, and we're actually talking about enhancing landscaping to promote walkability between the two, but I don't know until it happens and I can react to it. But I can tell you, I don't want our existing tenants upset by it, including Design Bar. If Leslie says, hey, this has been a big change that nobody, and quite frankly, there's going to be other issues that come up that we never even thought of, that happen, and we have to react to it, and we will react appropriately.
All right, that east lot, the 70 spaces I'm talking about are directly behind the 850, and then there's what, another 38 or so more towards the 1,000 building?
Yeah, there's spots behind
Okay,
our
is that all
building.
shared? So that
Yeah, but like
the residents,
our lot is full, probably, not full, probably a third full.
your lot being,
The 1,000 lot, that's behind there,
that's the
so.
38 spots?
Yes, just north of the east lot.
So when we're talking about the east lot, for tonight, we haven't talked about the other, are we talking about all 108 or just 7?
When we have used the term east lot, we've traditionally only kept it to the yellow, knowing that the northeast lot, we'll just call it that, is very traditionally more of a residential use. To my understanding, more of a 1,000 building lot.
That's more of a.
Yeah, the 1,000 building, I mean, it's used for concerts and events and stuff like that, but for the most
How
part.
full is that during the day?
It's probably about a third full. So however many, usually the parking spots that are along the building are full and there might be one or two
Can there
sprinkled in.
be a few spots reserved for the residents right behind the 850 building and then some more over there, or the 38 spots be used for the LifeWorks people?
If maybe I can ask a question, maybe to you, David. Are the spots necessary 24/7, or are we talking after 5 p.m. primarily?
Yes, I can address that. Mayor and the board, our building is predominantly seniors in our building. We have residents that are in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s, okay? We have residents that have, we have a heart transplant patient resident. We have multiple residents that have total knees, total hips, severe arthritis, heart conditions. They park there in that east parking lot. For them to suggest to say, well, they got to find some other spot. Where are they going to park? We're not allowed to park in the deck. Plus, these residents, they can't walk. They need short distances to walk. That's why that walkway was so critical. They could park whether in the handicap spots or right next to it, 50 feet, and they're into the building. Versus when they wanted to close it off and walk 480 feet. It's the same thing with the parking. If these members are all fitness people, what's the big deal? Ramsey even said that they're going to park mainly over at Lifetime and walk over here. Give us our 30 spots. These are seniors. They're all here because it's important. My God, look at them. It's a heart transplant residents and the ones that can barely walk. We have others that are walkers. There's nothing to joke about.
There's nothing to joke about, and we get it.
No, if they want that, we want our 30 spots.
We're
Can I say
trying,
one thing, Mayor?
and you guys have come to a certain, you're accustomed to a certain lifestyle there. It's a lifestyle center, in large part because there was never any retail that got down there. So I understand it's a very comfortable situation.
But you can't take away the spots.
We're not trying to take anything away. We're trying to get an accommodation for it. and I'm still working there. So,
Just like Lifetime, this concept is, their memberships, 1 month memberships. I mean, they've got 285 seats in there. I wouldn't be surprised if they, just like Lifetime, they get 2,000 memberships to fill those seats, and that's going to be a lot more than general office, the parking. That's why I really insist on having a parking study, because this could really be a disaster for the mall and for the residents. But at the minimum, we have to have our 30 spots reserved. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
yes, Leslie, and then we got someone else in there.
I think that the thing that needs to be taken into account too is that if there is another 10,000 square feet of retail space down there, or 11,000, which is in the 801 building, it's just going to cause more problem. And in order for the center to succeed, the retail needs to succeed. And if there's nowhere to park, it cannot only be an accommodation for the residents, but you need to think into the future and what's going to happen when 18,000 plus the other 11,000 square feet is leased. And yes, there is going to be a parking problem, but they're going to need parking for retail as well. And I'm saying that from the retail perspective because there just needs to be more retail parking down there. The stuff along the Village Green, why can't you know how like Bolingbrook has, like in the front, they do parking meters. Like, can you do that? Like, does that solve the
I guess
issue?
we can, but they're very unpopular, and they stopped taking money in Bolingbrook a long time ago because of that.
Because of that? Okay.
Yeah, it's just
I don't
very
know,
unpopular.
It's
That's a good idea. It's just
getting late, we've got to get the board to make some decision tonight, so, one more comment?
I work at Cumberland and Bryn Mawr in Triangle Plaza. We're only allowed to park in certain parts. There's a parking deck. We get a sticker. So why can't the WeWork employees or WeWork people that rent space get a sticker?
LifeWorks, it's not.
LifeWorks, WeWork.
That's a competitor.
LifeWorks is way nicer than WeWork. I've looked at it, like way nicer. It's like triple as nice. But why can't they be given parking stickers to kind of entice them to park in the deck? And then you say, hey, you get a sticker, you don't have to drive around and look, you get a spot in the deck. And then that leaves all the space open. And if a few of them cheat here and there, you give them a warning, but they'll keep being reminded to go into the deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strategic where, the door to the deck from the north parking garage, will shoot out
right there.
right to the space.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, that's what we always encourage. So a lot of the talk has been, there's no parking right now. There's no parking on Village Center Drive, which is normal. Those are teaser parking spaces. The bulk of the parking is meant to be in the parking deck. We have 1,300 spots.
Right.
I mean, you'd never know unless you, went in the deck and used it to what it's supposed to be used for.
No, and I know that you've
Right.
probably
Yeah,
thought of
and-
that already, because
Yeah,
I know
and
you
I-
are a genius, but you are. I know your reputation, Ramsey. I hear great things about you, and I'm in support of you buying it. In fact, I jumped up and down when I heard about it. But the parking has been an issue for everyone, and that might be a possible solution.
I would be willing to work with Lifetime Work to entice them to park in the parking deck by permit or stickers or some other mechanism to make that happen and incentivize them to do that.
Yeah, I think that
But to not give them any I think there's a happy medium here, but to not be able to give them any parking in the parking lot, which was also an enticing thing for them to want to come here, I think there's a middle ground.
Yeah,
that we
it's
can
shared
enforce.
space, and that's fair. No, I agree.
So, I mean, and traditionally, parking for residentials after 5 p.m., I mean, we would even consider looking at some timed, parking spots, something like that. But until I know the extent of, the detriment that it's going to cause the residents and other, office users and retail users, I don't know the solution yet until I know the whole problem to address.
Sure.
But I can guarantee we'll address it.
All right, Eloise, one more time.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to say.
No, you gotta get up here.
You don't,
You don't still carry the gun, do you? You don't still carry the gun, do you?
With respect, Eloise Carnevale, I know the way I feel personally, it's just a personal comment. All of us here residents invested in Burr Ridge. We are taxpayers and we're voters. And we've made a real commitment because we, bought our places here. And I myself feel a little disrespected tonight because I feel like I'm compared to someone who's just leasing and to a corporation. And I just wanted to say that. I mean, I really think that, you as a board, and I understand that, the vitality of our Burr Ridge Center is important to all of us. But we are the residents here. And I just hope that there's some, cautiously consideration and respect to us. Thank you.
So I think we've given this a lot of discussion tonight. The question ultimately ends up with 5 of you tonight. We don't have a full board. Do you have any final comment?
No.
Okay. Let's get some feedback. What's the consensus here? Yes, Tony?
Well, I'm a patron of the Village Center and County Line Square. I try to do all my shopping in Burr Ridge. I use that east lot because I go to Aveda to cut the 7 hairs that I have. And I enjoy that east lot, parking there and walking through the breezeway. But we have to remember that's 18,000 square feet.
That's just on one side of the breezeway. The other side.
But that's the floor.
Yes, the floor area.
Okay, well that affords 72 parking spots, regardless of what he puts in there. So that's 72 cars that would be added to the east lot, and the parking garage and the spots in front. So we've got to think in terms of that, although I would prefer to have a retail spot in there to generate sales tax for us and increase the foot traffic for everyone else. What I don't want to have happen is, life work goes in there and people start parking, and they start moving away from the life work and start parking in front of the Walk and Fire and the other stores that need that traffic to come in. And that will harm their business. I think it's convenient to park in those teaser spots. Every time I get one, I want to go buy a lottery ticket. But I think it's important that those teasers do stay free from any of those workers.
And if I can comment, I do agree with you. And, what I'm thinking of is, and I don't want to hit, I'm trying not to hit lifetime work all at once with, no breezeway, no parking. So I'd like to massage that in where, we do give them a certain number of spots and it's a certain color of permit that you have to have in your car to park in the east lot, and maybe a different color to park in the parking garage, and not allow on Village Center Drive. I have no problem with that.
Well, did you just say that, and so if there's 70 spots in the east lot, and you took, instead of us designating 30 for the residents, we say you can only use 40 of those, which is more than half. Does that work for you? Because then you can go to the LifeWorks and say, you got 40 spaces back here. By the way, it's also time, in my opinion, and I'll put this out there, for us to start looking at more signage and more directional signage in the Village Center so we get people into those decks. But, LifeWorks gets more than half.
But that's incorrect because we still have Design Bar taking spaces. We still have 7,000 square feet next to them that we're hoping to rent to somebody in the near future. And, LifeWork and Aveda all share that. So wouldn't just be 40 spaces for LifeWork, it would be 40 spaces for all the existing tenants, the new tenant,
And then you've got
potential new
38,
tenant.
and then how much of the residents use the rest of the east lot? The 1,000 building? You 1,000 people better speak up, right?
There's probably about a third of that lot is full on a regular basis.
So 2/3, so it's, so there's 20 more spots over there that aren't being used now. I mean, so Leslie, what's the reaction? So what if Ramsey said, I need 40 spots for my LifeWorks?
I don't know, I mean, right now, I have dedicated parking right out behind my store because it's hard to get parcels out to our clients, so we have dedicated parking spots. I feel like, I'm not only speaking just on my behalf, but I feel like any other retailer that takes a 7,000 square foot space next to me is also gonna want some spots. I don't understand why there's so much aversion to having the people who use LifeWorks be treated like any other employee or office employee person who uses the mall and have to use the garage. Like, I don't understand why there's so much pushback on it. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, LifeWork only has 3 employees, and we will not allow them to park.
Yeah, LifeWorks.
Well, no, what I'm talking about, the customers that use, they're technically office people that use LifeWorks.
But nobody enforces the parking in there. The police department doesn't come in there. The cars have never been towed out of there. When we have people parking in that parking lot, going to Midland. And I will watch them get their suitcase, get at Starbucks and wait for an Uber, and they're going to Midway because it's cheaper to leave their car here. And nobody polices or monitors those parking lots. The police department does not take it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's correct. We can only enforce the sign.
So they can't, they don't have authority. All right, well, that's another can of worms. That should stop. Yeah, we should look at that.
I parked in the parking garage at the Braves Village Hall, and there was a Braves police person monitoring the parking there, and I think it's 2, maybe 3 hours maximum for those 40 spots.
Yeah. Well, this is all day. Anyhow,
I feel that the 70 spots, maybe we can increase the number of handicap spots so that if there are residents who are not well and they need those spots, so those are earmarked for them, or just increase the number so that they're there. As far as the LifeWorks people are concerned, I mean, most business or people who are going to work in a business are okay with parking in a separate lot because the reason they're getting an office is because they're expecting clients to come and see them. And that's what these 70 spots are for their client meetings.
And if I can interject, I did learn most of the time, they're not clients really coming in. So it's not like the traditional office. So they're not, there are conference rooms available, but the primary reason for them coming is to work at a workstation on their own, and not, the primary reason is not to entertain clients and bring in others from the outside. And there's only 30 to 40% utilization of the space at any one time,
right.
Which is also what I found out.
And I mean, maybe we can think of maybe running a trolley around the village center. They pick them up from the garage and drop them off wherever they want. And I think in Burridge, we're just used to having parking right there. If you go to Oak Brook, it's a very different phenomenon. But I think we do need to take care of the residents and make sure that, their needs are met, but maybe having more handicap spots would help.
And I did find out, and this was previous ownership, so I can't take credit for it. I guess there was a request by the association to add an additional handicap parking spot, which was done. So there was only 1 required, and now there are 2 there.
But maybe more, because as they're saying, there are quite a few residents who are elderly, and they may have.
Yeah, but I was just, I guess, saying how that was done, I guess, independently from a request from the association. Can you accommodate our residents? Ownership reacted and did so without having, I guess, to be told, to do that, which we are willing to do as well.
Right, and then going back to your LifeWorks concept, one spot, so they park right next to Lifetime Fitness, and maybe you can run a trolley back and forth, or if in the winter months, but otherwise, if they're fit, then they should be able to walk back.
I'm hoping they'll use the garage in the winter months.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, or incentivize it in some form.
I agree.
Yeah, Joe.
If there's 30 or 40% utilization for this LifeWorks, residents at West made a great point.
Speak up, Joe.
Yeah, can't hear you.
Apologize. 30-40% utilization of the facility when it's there. They're going to go to Lifetime, supposedly, but we also don't know if they're going to go back and forth. And Leslie's own description of the back lot there is, you really can't, you gotta let it open, you gotta leave it open for the residents, you gotta leave it open for the retail. I park there every single time when I go to Topaz, in the back and walk through that breezeway. While you're in negotiation, in the back of your mind, you may have to just say, listen, if you're gonna work for, if you're gonna use that space, you will. Not an option. You're gonna park in the parking deck. You're gonna get a sticker, run it on the cars. If we find it, give the opportunity to the police, maybe you do that, put the correct signage up, make it easy on yourself, because you really don't want all the residents to come looking for you and bring you back here and then have a discussion. Make it simple for yourself. That would be my thought. Just make it over. I know other individuals for the office buildings that we insure all over. They say, you have 10 employees, here's where you're gonna park. You're on level 2, you get that over there. And
Right.
they can go park
Assigned
somewhere.
parking,
It's
assigned
like,
parking.
almost like you're on the 3rd level or
Right.
whatever, not upside. You're
Yeah,
under, you're
that's
safe,
assigned, yeah.
all the weather is all fine for them, but you may really wanna consider it, because you've got a lot of happy people out there.
Right.
And it does seem like it's the life work concept here in the village center that works for LifeWorks. I understand in a perfect world, parking right outside would be perfect, but certainly a business person, and that's what you're saying, sophisticated business people, get it, that they have to coexist with the residents, and they're gonna be a sign, or they're parking across the way, and as you pointed out, and I didn't hit me, but it's a good point, the front door where you're gonna have your entrance into LifeWorks is gonna be right across from the door to get into the, right across the mall and right into the parking garage. And if you can't designate 30 spaces for the residents, then I think you have to designate the parking garage for LifeWorks.
And it's
That's
a
the only
marketing
way
thing.
it's gonna work for this board. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and it comes with parking, free parking, and second floor is all fixed, or whatever floor.
Floor is, as Tony was so gracious to point out, there's 18,000 feet, there's 250, there's 72 parking spaces. 72. On floor level 3, there's 75 spaces, all waiting for LifeWorks,
Yeah, and you
just
can
for you. So
designate
whether it's
it that
snowing or raining or whatever, you can get in your car.
And maybe we can have some signage.
And Ramsey, I think they want to believe, I want to believe in your concepts. I believe that you're good at what you do, and you're telling us that's how this property will work. I'm willing to admit that after 10 years, it hasn't worked, and so I'm open to a brand-new idea. I think this board is too. But I think that the parking, shouldn't be, the tail shouldn't be wagging your dog here, and the parking should be something that a business person should know they can go across and have it designated in a covered space, especially in the wintertime, that's theirs. They can count on that.
Right.
Okay? The residents can't go over there. They should be told that. Residents can't go over there. And I think this board would be okay with that. I think the residents are okay with it. I can assure you that this board will make sure security is always the #1 priority in this village. So if there's any security issues, we'll deal with that. We got the best. So, the foot traffic, we're going to have to believe in you on that one because it's your business.
So, I mean, we would certainly be willing to make sure that the people that utilize co-working, maybe a majority of them use the garage. I would be hesitant to make, every single one of them use the garage. If we can apportion something, I think, I'm trying not to make this a deal killer with, the uphill battle that I have, which it still may be dead. I'm not sure.
Why don't you go to them and tell them that this, let me try to summarize this. I think this board is willing to let you do one of two things. Either give them their 30 spaces, or make sure everybody goes across, that's a tenant in LifeWorks goes across and uses the deck. I don't think we're prepared to just let it happen and see what happens without some security for the residents that they know they're gonna have 30 spaces. So if you don't want to designate the 30 spaces, then I think I'm speaking for the board, I'm getting the nods, that you're gonna have to say, you know, guys and ladies that rent in these areas, you're gonna get designated spots across the way, just for you, in a covered garage. I mean, how you market that, I think, could be very, that's why they're coming. They're coming there for Burr Ridge, and they're gonna have their own parking space and parking garage. I think you can have
Is there
that.
some number of spaces that we can offer this tenant? I mean, it doesn't have to be the equivalent if there was gonna be retail there, but I feel, I mean, we have executive offices, there will be people with disabilities that utilize this facility, think, you know, all the same concerns the residents have. So if we could maybe talk about a certain number of spaces that we can allot in the east parking lot for this use, and the rest of them, you know, maybe the highest level of executive office, you know, gets a parking permit there. Maybe, you know, that would be 20% of the use. Is there a number that we can?
I think
Reserve the 30, what you want with the rest.
well, but then Leslie's gotta be, then you gotta deal with your Leslie and the other retailers. So is there, what are you talking about? If there's 70 spaces, and I'm not talking about the 38, are you talking about 10? 10?
3. Yeah,
3
10, maybe
3 for the 3 employees.
10?
10?
I can try and sell that.
10?
How are you enforcing that those people are not parking in that parking lot?
Because they have to have a sticker. They have to have a
Okay,
sticker.
so I get a sticker when I drive my wife's car there that day. I mean,
So we would have to watch some of that, the same thing that you pointed, I'm glad you brought it up, if somebody shows up with a suitcase and gets in an Uber and they're going to Midway, I mean, we'll have to clamp down on that. But, you know, I don't know,
I just don't understand why it's acceptable, and the argument is acceptable for people who use the retail to have to park in the garage when there's nothing of those teacher spaces, but why is it not acceptable for the people who use the lifetime works to park in that garage as well? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I think you heard the board agrees with you, Leslie, but now he's saying, can I get 10? Can I get 10 spots outside of the 70, which leaves 60 for everybody else?
How do they enforce that those 10 spots are not going to be utilized by anyone coming there during that day? They can't say to 100 people or 150 people, you're going to get the sticker, but you're not. There's no way to know.
You mean if somebody's not using one or all of the 10 spots?
And most of my properties are very busy, and we have parking, I don't want to say issues, but enforcement. There really isn't a parking problem right now. As the village center fills up and becomes successful, parking is going to be a concern, and it will have to be enforced. And the way to do that is you have to put up signs, and I think there's been some hesitation to put up certain signs to be able to have cars towed, to be able to have cars ticketed and enforced right now, because it's not that big of an issue. I mean, there are people that I see park that go to the Pace bus. There are people that go to the airport. Because of the convenience of 294 and 55, there's probably 20, 30, 40 cars a day that just park there and carpool somewhere else that we are going to have to enforce.
If I just may comment on that, if you're doing that and you're planning on filling the center for more retail spaces, what everyone wants, those 10 parking spaces should be allowed to be left for those retail buyers.
But this is a 18,000 square foot spot that deserves some parking. 10 spots wouldn't even satisfy employees of a retail business of 18,000 square feet.
Yes, but they're not shopping. They come here to work.
That is not true. That is not true.
Everywhere else has a parking spot in a garage.
I respectfully disagree. They do shop, and I mean, otherwise we wouldn't want them there. All we're trying to do is bring shoppers and raise sales and foot traffic. I mean, I've talked to every tenant. I've talked to the restaurants. that, are begging for more foot traffic during the day. Some of these businesses that are hanging on by a thread are saying, just bring us more foot, and these are affluent people with families that are members of they're going to be, a lot of them are already residents of Burr Ridge. We're not, bringing in outside people. This is going to facilitate more commerce and interaction in the village and help us, by filling up the space, activate the village green for what it was meant to be. We have a stage sitting there that's not used 95% of the summer. I would like that to be used almost every day if possible. And this is the way to do it. If I'm sitting on a third vacant space and a third of other tenants hanging on by a string, it's very hard to place in the budget, the proper amount to facilitate those activations that are necessary. I mean, I would like to see plays during the day, partner with schools, communities, libraries, churches, other ethnic groups, dance troupes, food events. We have all these things in the works, but the pieces have to come, one by one to get to where we need to be. This is part of a grand plan. We're not in and out in a year. I mean, we have a 5-year plan, and, I plan on, right now owning this forever. This is too much fun.
One second, let's, it's after 10, let's move this and see if we can get to some conclusion. Yes?
So we need to be proactive here. We can't wait and see if a problem's going to happen. Just like the fence person, the trucking company, they want to be proactive about thefts, wants to put the electric fence. We have to be proactive as a board and solve this problem before it happens. So I would support 30 spaces assigned to the residents and back, or requirement that these users park in the parking garage exclusively. If you're an employee that works in the village center, you are not allowed to park on the street. You must park in the parking garage or behind the buildings. If you're a resident, you're not allowed to park on the street or in the parking garage. Why can't these tenants of LifeWorks have the same criteria put upon them?
I'm not disagreeing.
Okay.
So we're just trying to work it out.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to speak on this? Yes, Tony?
Yeah, instead of a sticker, you can do a placard system that hooks into the rear mirror of the car, and they forget about it. And I mean, I work near O'Hare, and they have security, making sure that people have those placards. And I have to park in one spot. It's the same system. You just get these people, they get their membership card and a placard, and they park in the garage. And I'm ready to support that.
Yes, Al?
Well, it's been mentioned, retail has always been the #1 objective, but over the years, it hasn't worked. I'm also alert to that fact. And I do believe this concept in the location has potential, but without a doubt, as we've heard today, the parking situation must be solved. Unfortunately, the way we're throwing it here, I don't think it's the right way to do it. I think to get, 2, 3 from each group of people to sit down with a parking person and get details, not put 20 here, 30 here, 20 here. Doing that today just don't make any sense. I believe we need a detailed plan, and the only way to do it is to get with the people that are involved and to be sure you know what you really need and what you want. We know what the residents need, we know what they want, and the only way to do it is to sit down with a parking expert and get all this stuff resolved rather than the way we're doing it today.
So are you suggesting to send it back to the plan commission and have a parking study performed? Is that what you're asking?
No, I don't know if it goes to the plan commission. I just think we need a group of 2 or 3 people, somebody from the residents, somebody from him, somebody from the village, and a parking expert.
I think we've aired it out. I don't know. I don't think there's a combination that works. I think the 30 works for you, but the 40 with a 10 share doesn't work for the retail. It sounds like the cleanest thing is to make them park in the parking deck.
Right.
I mean, this is all I'm hearing from the residents. And I do think that you can sell that. So I think you can get passage tonight. I'm kind of speaking for the board, but I think you can get passage tonight based on a requirement that the tenants park in their special places, however you want to handle it, in a covered, beautiful deck right across the village green.
Halfway between their office
And
their
Lifestyle
treadmill.
Fitness. And, right, so.
Is there no consideration that could be given for some number of parking spaces? For like 10 for a lifetime work?
I think there's pushback on 10, and then what happens if the 10 aren't being used, and how are you gonna monitor it, Ramsey, and, is there any consensus for 5 or 10?
I feel that if it's required to get the deal, maybe, because the logic is, like, if you are a business owner, if you're a retail owner, you would be assigned some spots. So if these are like the executive, top brass people who are paying extra rent, maybe then that's the incentive for them, that they get their own special spot.
But I mean, I don't know, is this concept for a top executive that's gonna occasionally use a?
I agree with that.
Yeah,
It's not.
I know, but
This is the next step up from your base.
Right.
That's not true. I use co-working when I'm in the city because I don't have a city office. And I'm a little more than one step out of my basement. So I think it's for all levels, and that's what we're preaching. It can be the person that is starting a new business, or it can be the CEO of a company that, you know, isn't flying to Minneapolis that day and is going to work from an office. If you look at the finishes and the deck, this isn't, you know, a hodgepodge operation. It's a very nice environment, which CEOs of the like would patronize.
Can we make, like, for now, let's just go with one floor in the parking deck, but if we need to do that, if you want to come back to the board and see what the board allows, as far as having some reserved spots in that lot.
I'd like to give them some certainty, but.
I totally, Anita's first statement was about giving them some kind of leeway, 5, 10 spaces for something. I am familiar with shared space, and there isn't executives, attorneys who want a space in a certain area or somebody, and they want to have, because they're willing to pay whatever it takes. So that particular situation, they're trying to rent it out. So
Yeah, I get the incentive.
So you got 70 spaces, they have 30 for the residents. He's trying to give 5 to 10, or at least some kind of certainty in the rest. Yes. You want to pay $2,000, $3,000 a month for a workspace? You can have a parking space. Okay.
Or you pay extra for the parking space, or whatever. I mean,
What was that?
you can wrap it up so that they pay a little extra for the parking space.
Let me ask you 2 questions. One is, why couldn't you have someone go right across the street, go right up to, and have a space right there reserved for the executive, the big shot? The other thing, I'll throw the word out, understanding that my son has a valet business, but what about valet parking for those executives that want to valet? I thought I was going to get shot if I said the word.
She doesn't ever go.
I don't know, I can't comment on the
I
appetite.
mean, that's the ultimate. You pull up your car, they come and get it and bring it back to you later. That's the person who wants to spend that money.
I mean, because we're looking at a few different potential valet options throughout the center on a regular basis, and from some of the data that we've talked about, received, it may not make sense, you know, for the whole day valet, you know, and this is supposed to be a very fluid type of environment where, you know, most of the time people aren't coming in at 9 and leaving at 5, where then I could say, hey, we're going to have valet from, you know, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then 4 p.m. So I don't know if that is something that Lifetime Work is requesting. We could definitely look into it.
Someone passed me a note, I don't want to raise valet anymore. But what about walking across the street, getting into that first, you know, go right up the step or take the elevator 1 floor, and there's your spot. There's 6 spots, 8 spots right there for the people who want to pay more rent.
Well, that opens up another can of worms because we don't have reserved spots in the garage right now.
But you can do that, right?
But in the context of a shared parking, now you're taking out spots from the pot.
Because they may not be there every day.
Right, and then when someone comes for a concert and that executive's not there, can they not park there? Yep. You know, it's.
Yeah, I know. So, the only question at the board level right now, I think, is what's the reaction to having?
Can't they reserve the 9 to 5 for those specialized spots, or just people, because he says they work 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
They can be reserved 9 to 5, still open in the evening for concerts, and still open in the evening for people that are going to the restaurant, which most of us do. Right now, Bob and I visit the restaurants maybe 5 times a week.
Right.
We really do, every night. You can circle every night, Burridge Center, there's not one parking space anywhere available in the front park. We go to the 3rd floor of the garage, 7 o'clock at night, and it's full.
Okay.
So.
I think that's what I think I look at. The other is, if he needs 7 spots to be reserved for LifeWorks, will that work?
We're gonna get a bike at the end of this.
That's 10%. Did I do my math right? That's 10% of the spaces.
Would be those executives which want to cover parking in the middle of winter.
I don't know. I'm trying to follow his business. Oh, that's in the back.
Lifetime to the center, then the having more there.
I wish he was here to, answer that.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's closer to Lifetime, you're doing something with that area that's between the 2 buildings. It might be a good solve that it's still close enough, it's literally walking across the Village Green. It's actually probably closer than parking in the east lot.
I hear you, but believe it or not, we are planning on renting that space in the future. So I would totally be on board with that, but I would be hurting myself for marketing that space to a next tenant.
All right, there's only 1 or 2 things, and we need to get something done tonight. It's either directional, they all have to go over to the parking deck, or if the board wants to vote for it, 7 spaces in the east lot.
If I can just make a comment before this, I feel like giving them 7 spots is, the equivalent to here's a little bit of teaser parking. It's not going to move the needle. I think the residents are going to get what they want in the available parking field, and I'm at least going to show Lifetime, hey, there's the ability to use some spaces in front as you see fit. If it's an executive, if it's a promotion. Coworker of the month, I don't know, but something. But I feel like it would be a bad message just then to say, hey, you don't get a breezeway and you don't get parking. Welcome to Burr Ridge. Sayonara. I think that's going to be a hard sell for me.
You said parking in front? You mean at ground level, in front of the stores, in front of the?
I'm sorry, on the
east lot?
The east lot, not in front. We will not allow parking in front.
East lot.
I don't think there is consensus at the board to status quo and let, unless you're very, very restrictive in the back, and I don't see any.
I'm saying maybe at least a 7 to 10 spots.
Is there any, you want to give them 1/10 of the 70 spaces, 7 spots? None of them handicapped? 1 of 7 being handicapped? Added handicap? I don't. If not, then it's just across the street in the parking deck. Yes, Joe?
I would give him put the 7 spots, give
Same.
Ramsey a chance, see what he can do. If he can't do it, he can't do it.
Do you want to do
Is
a
this something that they had asked for?
I mean, that was kind of the enticing part of that space was an adjacent parking lot as an amenity, as opposed to, no parking lot there, maybe just the spots in front and a parking garage. I think it adds another option.
If I may just clarify something, we focused a lot of the attention on the deck. It sounds like what the board is trying to do is simply not have them park in the east lot predominantly. Should the use be I think what you're getting at is they should park anywhere but the east lots. Is that more accurate? Sounds like we were very
Yeah, if they went behind the 801.
We're very restricting ourselves to just a deck. You know, if there's no one in 801 for the time being.
You can park at lifetime.
Who cares, yeah. But I think what you're getting at is basically nothing in the yellow and the thing above it, right?
And nothing on Village Center Drive.
I'm sorry, that was assumed. I'm sorry, yes.
These tenants do have a membership at Lifetime, so these tenants can park in Lifetime. They could start their morning in Lifetime and walk.
That's kind of their idea.
So
the restriction will be 7 spaces in the east lot. And that's all they're allowed, is 7 spaces in the east lot. Anywhere else, they can park unrestricted. Is that correct?
Except for Village Center Drive.
Yes.
Except for the
So you're okay with 7?
I'm okay with it, I'll have to see if they're okay with it, but yeah.
How do they enforce it now with the employees?
how would it work? 7 spots would be actually designated? Or you
We
give
can have
out,
signs.
Give out
you give out 7
7.
stickers
7
where
residents.
someone could use it if they wanted to, and so they're not taken probably most of the time.
Correct.
The 7 will be high-paying rent people, I suspect, and they may not be there all the time. They've got the luxury of having an office, but they may not be there all the time. So it wouldn't be used on a regular basis, and if it's not used, it's available.
They're not reserved.
They're not reserved.
No, they're non-exclusive.
Right.
Yes.
But how do you, other Life Works office members, how do you keep them from parking in these?
We're gonna have to monitor that, I guess. We have our cameras, and if people are, I mean,
We're not giving them stickers or anything, you don't know whether they're shoppers or they're office workers. That's why we would prefer signs, reserve, paint, whatever it takes for residents of the 850 condos.
but then you're not gonna necessarily use them all the time either. You know, 30, I mean, when you go over there's probably lots of times when those 30 spaces won't be used by anyone then. And that isn't really a solution either when there's only 70 spots to deal with. So unless you wanted 2 different, you know,
Yeah, do you have the ability to sticker everyone and only
Yes.
different color sticker can park in that east lot?
Yeah.
And the rest of the tenants
They
have
gotta
another
go there.
sticker, so they're discernible as to where they're parking.
Right.
Tony
Yeah,
said-
And that frees up the east lot for the most usability on any given day, because at most, at any given time, there would be 7 cars from LifeWorks in that east lot. And the chances of that happening are rare, and they won't be there that often. I mean, that's a pretty good compromise, I would think.
You're gonna be able to take down the license plate numbers, et cetera,
Right.
as you give it to. The police could have access to that.
So what about that? 7, anybody that's a tenant at LifeWorks has to have a sticker. Only the 7 blue stickers can ever park in the east lot. All the other green stickers have to be, or whatever it is, in the deck.
Or Lifetime or whatever.
Or Lifetime or anywhere else, except on, you know, we can't let them on Village Center Drive. How,
I think that's.
I guess I got to look the 5 of you.
Do you want to?
Sounds like,
do a mo-
okay.
What if I don't put my sticker in my window? Then I can park anywhere.
Well,
Police will have access to a list of
The
license
sub-
plates
Yeah,
with
the 7.
those stickers aside.
Guy drove his
Police
wife's
will?
car. Guy's hit red light thing, put all your license plates down when you sign in. I got 5 different cars, whatever light car I take, it doesn't matter.
Right, you gotta,
Put them all down and you get ticketed.
Stickers can go in, no stickers.
and if
gotta
some
go out.
people will try to break the rules, and if we catch them, then maybe we have the right to end their lease or something. You know, I don't know, we can't do that, but we'll have to, and we have to stop the people going to Midway, and we have to do a lot of things.
It's another problem.
Right.
Separate problem for another night.
Separate problem, but we have problems.
Different night.
So can we get,
Do you want to make a motion?
want to make a motion?
Joe? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that
You direct staff.
we direct staff to prepare. Not very good at this. All right, to prepare a proposal where the LifeWorks employees or people park in the designated spot, and we will allow for 7 spots in the east lot.
Okay, I have a couple clarifications.
Many.
So, thank you. The first is you're moving to do the 2 amendments.
Okay.
To direct us to prepare, authorizing a text amendment and a special use subject to the previous 4 conditions recommended by the Plan Commission. You are adding a 5th condition that says in this yellow area, or unless you want to be more specific,
Yeah.
defined as the east lot, 7 spaces will be reserved for lifetime work users under some sort of parking management system.
They're only permitted 7.
Only permitted 7 spaces. They cannot park in the 8th space.
And
The
by
reverse.
stickers not designated, there won't be 7 spots.
Correct. They could park
They
anywhere,
can spot-
but only 7 stickers.
But only
can
7
park in the lot.
stickers can be issued, and otherwise, there have to be stickers to be in the deck. Or behind me, or somewhere, anywhere else in the village center.
So,
Okay?
second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Mattal.
Yes.
Trustee Snyder.
Yes.
Trustee Paveza.
Yes.
Trustee Schiappa.
Yes.
Trustee Francis.
Yes.
5-0.
5-0, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Again, it's a great village because we have great people who put in, and thank you for the compromise tonight. Greg, thank you for your time. Larry, Ramsey, I hope you get the deal done. Let us know.
You too. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the consideration.
Get the hell out of here. Hey, guys. Want to get 2 more? Okay. Yes. Yeah. We'd love you to see you. Then you can get back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. You guys believe it or not, the board has a couple more items. Can you please, if you're going to leave, thank you for spending all the time tonight. And I want to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you very much. That's 8F.
Just let them clear out. It'll be similar. This happened last Monday, so. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for backing me up because.
Got one in the car.
Okay. Hi, Matt. Thanks, Ramsey. 8F, consideration of recommendation to approve a request for conditional sign approval and sign variations, SO4 219 7425 Wolf Road, Pleasantdale Park District.
Thank you. Just before I
Does
begin.
anybody have any objection to this request?
I had a couple questions.
Okay, what are they?
Could you please pull up the renderings?
Please.
The renderings of the sign?
Oh, no, that's
Okay, so the before sign,
You want the before sign?
the before, this is,
That's
The
current?
now.
that's the current sign. You see how the top of the sign is even with the top of the monument to the side? And then the proposed sign, it's the same. Now, if we go over to the sign for the school district, the proposed sign extends much higher.
Oh, there. Stack.
Oh, let's go
Talking about the next
Right there.
item
So,
on the
I'd
agenda.
like the top of
those?
this sign to be even with the top of the monument.
Okay, that's
Like
the
the
next
other
item.
side.
Right.
It's the next agenda.
Okay, but on the first one, for the first one that's up right now is the Park District.
But I had to show you both. I had to show you both at the same time.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so I didn't want to double back. Okay.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I'm fine with this.
So, you want to make a motion on the Park District?
It's two-sided, correct?
I think he's got something to tell us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Matt Russian, I'm the executive director of the Park District. Griffin Sontag, the principal of the school, had a work commitment tonight, so he's not able to be here through the whole process. I'd like to go on record. Evan's been fantastic walking us through things, so thank you for that.
Well, that's why you wanted him this week.
So we've kind of, we've been working in conjunction, lockstep together to try to lump it together. We're in the same boat, but right, there are differences in the size. We came last week. We appreciate Planning Commission's initial approval. I'm not sure what kind of notes you're given. There was 3 conditions that were put on our approval. The first one being the time frame, which we were completely on board with, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. It would not be on. No commercial kind of applications. We're not using it as a revenue generator. And then the last one was a 1-minute hold time. Be 100% honest, it was 11:45. We were here for almost 5 hours going through kind of that last night. Last Monday, we were appreciative to get through it, and then upon reflecting, Evan and I talked on the way home and the next morning, and we said the whole point of the sign, the digital sign, is to disseminate extra information out to the community about our events and programs. A 1-minute hold time is very, very long. I don't want to bore you, but like if we just did a stopwatch right now, a minute's going to be forever.
Yeah, what do you want?
I'd like to go down to 10 seconds, respectfully.
What's that?
Again, I don't know what information you get. I gave Evan, sent a bunch of information. The sign, the existing sign is a Gower. Their default is 4 seconds. And we're just looking for 10.
What about the billboards that you see, on that? What
Sorry?
what about billboards that you see
Those-
on, tollway, et cetera? What's their?
I did as much research as I could. Department of Transportation, they factor it a little bit differently based on the size of the message, like how many, like if you get down to how many letters it is. And their signs are obviously a lot larger. I mean, for ours, we're 18 square feet of information, so it's very, very minor. Countryside has a 10-second minimum. Willow Springs, they have no time requirement. Wheaton also does 4 seconds. The item that was brought up last week was a concern about driver safety, and we're all about driver safety, and we're trying to work to get the crosswalk there as well, so we're on board with all that. But I also submitted, there's a traffic study from Texas A&M showing no correlation between addition of LED signage and any instances of increases in traffic accidents.
So when I read the material on the sign, I thought a minute was awful long. I think more into 5 to 10 seconds if you want to get information out.
And I apologize, we probably should have brought that up last week, but
You guys okay with 10 seconds?
I'm okay with 10 seconds.
Okay.
10
10
seconds.
seconds? So, yeah.
Number 7.
Okay,
I make a motion
so,
we approve the sign as described in the documents as recommended by the Plan Commission with the modification that the message be allowed to change every 10 seconds or more.
Second.
any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, that passes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
G is consideration of a recommendation to approve a request for conditional sign approval and sign variations S 05-2019 7450 Wolf Road, Pleasantdale School District 107. Put that up there. Trustee Francis would like it to be even, makes sense to me. Is there any objection to that?
You can drop, can't we just drop the whole
I
thing?
don't necessarily want to speak for him because I don't know, like, we're working with existing parameters. I can tell you that the LED panels are 1 foot by 1 foot, so ours fits as 3 by 6. I believe his was the 4 by 5. His concern, because I think, and I don't know all the rules of the ordinance, is he was concerned about not extending towards the street and then breaking a rule by getting closer to the sidewalk. So I don't know.
I have a clear comment
This
if
is
you want.
basically, this is a foot as well, the top foot. I don't know if the sign company, if they can do something a little bit smaller.
Or take out some of the brickwork below the sign?
Take some of the brick off. Right, but go ahead.
I was going to say, you're already asking for a variation to be within the setback anyway. If the board doesn't care, you can just kind of go out. So you're already within the 10-foot setback right now. So going closer to the street, you wouldn't need any more variation than you already do. So that's more of a, chef's choice at that point.
Not following.
So they need this request needs a variation because they're trying to put a sign within a 10-foot setback. What Mr. Russian is basically saying is he didn't want to extend closer to the road for fearing of breaking rules. He's already needing a variation to put this.
He's already breaking the rules.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that, I think just in conversation with the last time we've been dealing with it for 6 or 7 months, I think that was a concern. I don't
So
want
if
to.
you bring it down, guy, and it sticks out a little bit, you okay with that?
Or increase the
Or
left side.
increase the masonry,
Or the
Or
left
decrease
side.
the masonry.
decrease the masonry here.
Yeah.
Increase.
Why can't you
No,
just
I
make it
don't
fit,
have
make the
to make
masonry
them,
down?
that's already in place.
Oh, okay.
we don't, I'm trying to minimize the modification to that. So the top portion is not part of the changeable movable sign, correct?
Correct. That's just an LED backlit. Correct.
Okay, so we could shorten that. It already says Pleasantdale Middle School on the side of the sign, on the brick portion, and we say it again on top. Or we remove some of the course of brick above the sill, looks like a sill is there, the white stone.
Yeah.
Remove that course of brick and lower the whole thing down, which would actually be my preference. I like how it all fits in there. It's a nice rectangle. It's not convoluted with multiple.
Flush.
Okay, why don't we get a motion to make it fit, and we'll prove it, and then...
Second.
Subject to the 10 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, 10 seconds also.
10 seconds again.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Public comment? I hope there's no public comment. There is public comment. Come on up.
There is public comments.
Introduce yourself.
I will.
Alice Crampets, 7515 Drew, Burr Ridge. I am here tonight as your INM National Heritage Corridor Civic Center Authority representative. And I wanted to do a couple things. One, thank you for your annual donation. Two, I wanted to talk to you about the rendezvous, which is coming up, the annual rendezvous. This year, the River Through History, as it's called, is going to be held on September 7th and 8th of 2019, 10 to 5 on Saturday and 10 to 4 on Sunday. This is a reenactment that supports the Civic Center's Authority mission to be committed to historic, recreational, and economic development of the Heritage Corridor. This is an event that is, like I said, a reenactment of the fur trade era. There will be music, entertainment, craft demonstrations, tomahawk throwing, that's always a really good one. There's a kids training post, skillet toss, meat desable, games and more. It's a really great event. I hope you guys will be able to join us. At 1 o'clock on Saturday is when they do the landing, the Voyager landing. It's a big deal where they reenact the landing on the Des Plaines River. This event is held at Columbia Woods, which is part of the Cook County Forest Preserve District, which you heard earlier today. They do loan us that property or that forest preserve for the day. I do have complimentary tickets here for everyone, so I'd like to pass those out. And if the public is interested, they can go to ariverthroughhistory.com for more information. The other question I have for you, though, from the committee of the rendezvous group is they would like to know if they can talk to the police chief and find out if we could borrow one of the electronic signs to direct people for parking on that weekend, which would be the Saturday and the Sunday.
Please do.
Do I go through the village administrator?
Nope, right there.
Or go directly to the man over there? Okay, so if we could do that, we would appreciate that. Another comment I wanted to make, if there are any teachers that are out there in Burr Ridge or any surrounding communities, we do have the school day, which is actually on Friday, September 6th. And that is free to the schools. They have to get the children to the Columbia Woods, and then they, Voyagers and all those reenactors will be there to educate them. They have special programs they do on that day, and it's free. There's absolutely no charge. They can contact us through the website if they're interested in bringing their school group. We generally take 800 to 1,000 students on that day, so it's a very nice benefit. And the last comment that I had is I am also on the board of the Heritage Corridor Visitor and Convention Bureau. They have some wonderful catalogs of activities. I've left some out here in the Village Hall, and I do have some to pass out for you tonight. So that is all I need. So let me pass these around. There's some complimentary tickets, and I have some complimentary books here. These are the travel books. They're really nice ones. These are put out by the Heritage Corridor. And then I have some other books that all of you can have. So I'll just pass those around.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you, Alice.
Is there any more public comment? Okay, any reports and communications from village officials or staff? Yes, Al?
I just think, to let the people know, if they haven't seen it, that the Secretary of State's office is gonna be here Wednesday from 3 to 9, or 9 to 3.
9 to 3.
So if you have any business with the Secretary of State, you come here, they'll have their full group here.
And you're able to renew your driver's license, obtain a state ID, and purchase your vehicle stickers, which we don't sell. So they don't need that. Anything else? Anybody else? Probably appropriate, but the next concert is strung out, like this meeting tonight. August 16th, and then the last one is August 23rd, the Chicago Experience. I want to thank the 5 trustees, did yeoman's work tonight. Anlin, you did stereogenics, and the 5 of you really stepped up on this whole village center, which is so key. I enjoy the interplay and the good ideas of the 5 of you, and I think it's a great combination. I want to commend the 5 of you for doing this.
I think all 5 of us and staff really appreciate what you're doing and really putting the extra effort, so I want to thank you too.
I think I may have broken my record. I don't think we've ever had a meeting that went 3.5 hours.
That was a lot of negotiating back and forth.
Well, you know, Evan called up and
I wish I was getting
I was
contingency
talking
fee
to
and
him and I said, you guys, you know, have no concept. 11:30 was normal in the early years.
Yeah.
Danita and I heard that
But not by me. And then to show you how new Evan still is, I said, why are all these people here? Is it going to be a long meeting with going on here with the village center? And he said, no, I think they just want to hear that the breezeway's been closed down. So, you know, they're here for a reason. They always want to participate.
It's like a.
Yeah, they want to participate. Good discussion tonight. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.